in overtime, and they kept cutting in and going away from the audio of an overtime game, and to show it every time they would, Tulane would have something funny about, hey, ESPN with a hand raise, we're over here whenever you're ready to get back to this game. But I saw today, it was either last night or this morning, they tweeted out a uniform reveal for these alternate uniforms they're wearing, and it said, here's our uniform. Oh, wait, never mind. Judge just hit 62. Better luck next time for us. We'll get back to it tomorrow or something like that after they saw you at 62. So it's really well done. Paul, we were talking about the gap in home runs.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds in 2001 hit 73. Second place that year. Sammy Sosa hit 64. I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
He had over 62 in 2001 after his run in 98 to 66.
Sosa might have been the biggest bridesmaid in sports history.
Yeah, Luis Gonzalez had 57 that year for the Arizona Diamondbacks. This is Hutton's era. This is right in your wheelhouse, the Royds era. Pudge Rodriguez, 52 for the Rangers that season.
How do you feel about the play-by-play coincidence, if you will, that both Michael Kay and John Sterling finished their calls with case closed?
I saw the video of John Sterling. I've never seen video on him making a call on radio, but I think SportsCenter had we had the Mariners guy last week, and they had a video of that as well at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
I didn't know Sterling had so much energy or could even muster that level of energy. I mean, he was rising out of his seat, and his hands were going up.
For
and
his
he was into
scripted home run calls, he gets it up there. It is high, it is far, it is deep. I thought Michael Kay did better with this one than he did with the previous one, but it's too long. You need to be done by the time the guy gets to third base, and he wasn't done until he got to home. Sterling was a minute and 30. I mean, the clip was literally a minute 30. So
they had clearly been either talking, or many people I'm sure have talked about, case closed on the AL record. What I learned about the fan base, the casual baseball fan, is they still view Bonds and McGuire as the guys. I mean, watch Twitter last night. You're looking at 62, and I'm seeing people nationally being retweeted. The people I'm following are responding saying, number one in the AL, but you've got, 6 different records ahead of him, and they're owned by Bonds, McGuire, Sosa. I don't know. I expected more feedback on the push has been about Judge and not mentioning the other record. And the way they're framing it is the AL home run king, and people are looking at it going, okay, but we witnessed 11 more in a single season, and Major League Baseball and all of its writers and all of the coverage is all about the records, the sanctimonious records. You can't mess with the game because of the records, and they haven't removed 73 from atop that list. As long as it's there, don't fool us.
I thought about this too. It's so much more to me of a Yankee story than even an American League story with Maris. Because leagues start to matter less and less now, the way the game's
this is
being played.
right at the end of it, too.
So,
still, like if this happened 10 years from now, it really wouldn't mean
So, Hutton, one person who disagrees with that point of people saying 73 is the record is Roger Maris Jr. Did you guys see what he tweeted immediately when Aaron Judge hit him? And I quote on Twitter, Aaron Judge is the new, in all caps, clean home run king. All the young kids who watched Aaron Judge set the single-season record for home runs, you finally have someone to revere. No more trying to explain to you how someone could possibly hit 73 home runs in a season.
I thought Michael Kay, speaking of the Yankees broadcast, did a good job. Like after things settled down during the course of the game, he and David Cohn and Paul O'Neill had a good conversation where he just said, like, hey, it's for you to sort out what it means to you. Babe Ruth did it during segregation, and they're not against any black players. These other guys, several of them hit it during the steroid era. It's up to you how important that was to you or not. Obviously, it's a big piece of Yankee lore here and American League lore. Aaron Judge himself has said, Bonds has the record to him. But obviously, it's not insignificant in baseball history. But as to whether it's, how big it is up to a baseball fan. And O'Neill was kind of saying, that's part of the beauty of baseball, like that you can sit down and debate this over beers. And they had a good conversation about it that I thought was fitting for the moment.
Well, I think they're leaving out, touting him as the home run king.
Nobody was doing that, like in the context of the Yankees. Roger Maris Jr. is doing that.
In the play-by-plays, he rounds the bases. We have a new AL home run king. I mean, they're pushing that, and they are withdrawing any conversation about the steroid era while doing so.
Well, they're still saying AL, which is not inaccurate.
But again, like in terms of history, if this were a guy playing for Kansas City and he hit 62, I don't know if we have the same lore to it where you have the same AL home run king push. But because it's Judge and it's the Yankees, they are pushing the narrative that this is now the home run king.
It's a torch passing from Ruth to Maris to Judge.
Your point, we were talking about Peyton Manning's 55 touchdown passes in a season. We're not going to be hyping up the NFC touchdown passing record when someone gets to 53 in that conference or whatever it may be.
To be fair, the league, and I don't disagree with you guys at all, but to be fair, the division between the AL and the NL has been the most distinctive division in sports.
Let me pose this question.
Though it's fading.
What if it was a Kansas City Royal?
No, it's true. It would not have been as big a deal.
They would not have been breaking in. They would not have been doing any of that. I mean, it all comes down to this is no mystery to anyone. ESPN drives the ship. In a lot of ways, they have the ability to cut in and go live to everything. And they're located really close to New York City. And a lot of America's media is in New York City. So New York City is going to get a lot more shine when it's a Yankee than anyone else. That's what happens.
The percent of the population that still appreciates baseball for the numerical element, there are just so many fascinating elements to the numbers. We talked about the 35%. I was looking at it, I think of the Babe Ruth number as being such like a permanent number. That number lasted 34 years, from 27 to 61. 34 years. Roger Maris's number lasted 61 years.
In the American League.
In the American League.
Yeah, in the American League.
Yeah,
with the Yankees. I'm from a Yankee perspective.
I said that last week. That's the most interesting part to me is how long that record lasts for the Yankees and for the AL. But when Maris broke that record, he broke the Major League Baseball record.
Yeah.
That also happened to be the ghost of Babe Ruth in that city. So it's different.
Well, it feels like with some of the coverage, and we're not certainly leaning into that, but I was last week, Paul, I was mentioning with Chad, I was like, I still don't feel like ESPN's doing what they would have done in the late 90s with this. I mean, they started to break in on Saturdays, but it was very at the tail end of him catching
it's also,
the record.
They don't have the games the way they did back then. They're cutting into Yes Network's telecast, not cutting into ABC stuff with their own telecast.
I thought the conversation started because Apple had the broadcast and how many people were going to see history, and then that sparked the, are they going to allow this to air somewhere else? And the answer was no, and he didn't hit a home run that night. Point being, though, I think it feels a lot like a vacated title to me, where we all witnessed the home runs and the steroid era, but yet the narrative in some spots has been like, this is the new record, the chase for Maris. And it's like, well, okay, this is cool. We've seen this. We've seen this quite a bit on a nightly basis from June all the way through the end of the season.
Yeah, I don't feel like that.
And now those people are fathers watching it with their, sons and daughters and family. And, I'm following it because, again, I like the long ball, and I think Aaron Judge is excellent. He's fantastic. But, I mean, AL record versus Major League Baseball home run king, you're not going to find anyone touting Barry Bonds, except for Major League Baseball, who refuses to, quote-unquote, vacate that number when we see it and we lived it.
I'm biased because of the Yankee thing, but the thing that made it so special to me is that gap, because it's hard to hit right now. We've talked a lot about the quality of pitching.
Yeah.
I wrote a column about it. You watch that Pitching Ninja Twitter, and there's just nasty stuff. And so that he was able to do this when everybody else was struggling, and he's hitting 311 while he's doing it. How many power hitters are hitting 311? Nobody. Guys with power are hitting 211, not 311. And so the gap to me was incredible, that he's not a jerk as some of these guys kind of were, that did it
Sure.
was big to me. Then that he's on the Yankees is big. I think whether you like it or not,
No, yeah.
it stirs stuff
Yeah,
up. He's a
it's great for
Yankees
baseball.
right fielder. So all of that stuff kind of hyped it up to me in a way that made it bigger than it would have been anywhere else, like you guys are saying. And the contract year element, that he turned down $271 million right before the season, bet on himself. He's a guy that's been injury prone. He just played, I think, 52 straight games to push through for this, which is not something. Yankees rest guys on a regular basis by their analytics rules on days that don't make sense. Not on a pitching thing. On a 3 weeks ago, we decided he'd be off
usage.
this Friday.
Oh, yeah.
And he wasn't a part of that. They gave in to the race.
Coming up, primary complaint. That's next on OutKick 360.
Hey, this is David Hookstead, host of American Joyride. On our latest episode, I sat down with Army veteran and former operator Jesse Betcher to hear stories about his time in the service just like this. This is one of my favorite questions. I love asking, what's the funniest thing you ever saw while deployed?
Oh man, there's some funny things. So people, I don't know, they think combat is all like, killing and blood and guts, or whatever. Man, I laughed every day overseas. We got into a couple. I can't think of the funniest thing, but something that just comes into my mind. It was a couple little pranks, and I'm not a big prank kind of guy.
Me either.
And so if somebody pulls a prank on me, I will log it, but I usually won't retaliate, because I'll think about it. And then but if it happens again, I'm going to get you back. If you pull a prank on me, I'm going to get you back like so much worse than you got me. And my kids know that. So there's no pranking that goes on in this house because my kids are well aware that they want, as an example. So we, over in Iraq one time, those old alarm clocks with two bells on top and the big dinger in the top?
Yeah.
So there was one of those in our safe house. I don't know where it came from, but it was an electric one. So you didn't hear the ticking noise. So it was silent but it still had the big dinger with the bells on top. Anyway, so we're, like I said, we do stuff at night. So in the daytime we sleep. Well, somebody had, we build these like bunks out of plywood and 2x4. So we had these wooden bunk beds, and somebody had taken some Velcro and stuck this thing up underneath my bed to go off at like 11 a.m., which is like right in the middle of my level 4 REM sleep, and this thing is super loud, and you wake up and it's completely dark in there because we blacken in all the windows to keep the sunlight out so we can sleep. So I wake up and this thing's going off and I can't find it because it's Velcroed up under the bed. And I didn't do anything. And then it happened again. It was hidden up kind of like in behind a bookshelf. Like a week later, it goes off again in the middle of my sleep cycle. And I don't know who's done it yet, but there's 4 of us in this room. So I know it's not one of those 3 guys. So there's only probably 8 of us total in the house. So I'm like, okay, I got to narrow it down to 4 guys. And then it goes off a third time. This time they got real creative and they put it up in a ventilation duct where they actually had to unscrew the grate in front of the vent, put it inside there, and then screw it back on. So I couldn't even get to it to turn it off. But now I had it narrowed down to 2 guys. And the good thing is these 2 guys lived in a separate part of the house where they had their own room and their own shared bathroom. So what I did is I took a can of like heavy industrial strength pepper spray, and I just sprayed it on the toilet seat. And then I just sprayed it on and then just kind of wiped it off, leaving a film on there. And the next day, a guy named Kyle Lamb, I don't think I've told this story publicly before, but so Kyle Lamb comes into my room, and I've only seen Kyle mad twice in my life, and he was furious. And he comes in, and I'm sound asleep, and he comes in and starts screaming at me, poking his finger in my chest, and he's like, "What did you put on the toilet paper?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, man." He's like, "What did you put on?" And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, I guess he went out in the room where the other guys were, and he dropped his pants, and his whole ass and back of his legs were were bright red and just like burning because he didn't know what it was.
Right. Make sure to catch the full episode tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on OutKick.
Live from 6th and Peabody, OutKick 360 rolls on. It is that time of the week. Rapid fire time for primary complaint.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for primary complaint on OutKick 360.
Guys, my primary complaint today is with Direct Action Everywhere, the organization that is representing the protesters that ran onto the field. There were two of them. One woman was apprehended, I guess, taken down before she even made it onto the plane service on Monday night in San Francisco. The other one was, of course, trucked by Bobby Wagner. Those two have filed a police report over this. Are you filing a lawsuit when someone jumps into a cage with a tiger? Are you filing a lawsuit against the zoo over this? You jump into the plane surface and you get trucked. You need to be aware that there's a chance you can do that, because while you may be protesting some pig farm, Bobby Wagner doesn't know that. These players don't know that. And I want you to get decked if you're running around like an idiot. That's my primary complaint.
And maybe, just maybe, he likes the pig farm also. So he took exception to that. My primary complaint this week, I'm a fan of Game of Thrones. I watch House of the Dragon. I'm enjoying it. I will also never read one single solitary word of the works of George R.R. Martin. Why? Because I enjoy those shows in moving picture form and not the fantasy fiction books. So when you have a show called House of the Dragon, I need to know about the origin of the dragon without going to read 800 pages of George R.R. Martin to understand it. I don't know. Maybe give us a prequel episode, a flashback that shows the dragons, how they're controlled, where they all come from. Why does one house have control of them and not others? These are things that are not explained on the show, and it's getting frustrating to me when some 12-year-old kid can hijack a dragon by talking nice to it in Dracarys or whatever it was that they were talking. Explain it to us, please, without me having to go read the books. That's my primary complaint.
Time has finally come. Ooh, dragons.
Paul showing his age and the fact that he's not cool.
Don't care. I don't care about dragons.
You absolutely
and
care.
now I don't.
You care about being cool.
Here is
We all do.
this is a rope hat. These are somehow in vogue, even for people who aren't cover bands of Captain and Tennille. If you're wearing a rope hat, this rope must be down. My primary complaint is people who are wearing rope hats, but letting this rope come up. I may not be cool, Hut, but I know this rope being up is not cool. And I'm seeing far too many people trying to be cool, wearing the rope hat, letting the rope slide up. If you're wearing this, constantly touch it and push the rope down. Constantly. The rope must be down.
The rope needs to be more of a belt and not a belly chain.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
Thank you,
Because the way you
Chad,
had it up, pull
for
the ball, it
enhancing
looked like a belly chain. It's got to be a belt. I agree
Belt.
with you. I agree with you. And
Better
I love that
off,
hat.
What is old
get
is now
this
new.
and cut this off or buy a better hat.
That hat, though, works better with the rope as opposed to no rope. Most don't. That one does.
I prefer Tennille to the Captain.
And you prefer no dragons to dragons.
Correct.
I'm shocked about how much I'm interested in these dragons on this show. I was far less interested in the original dragons, but I need to understand the operation of the dragons without having to read anything
Oh, yeah.
from George
Sounds like
R.
you're
Martin.
very interested. You need the background of the dragons.
I would enjoy a nice background episode that shows the history of the dragons.
Oh, this author wrote his own language and stuff.
Yeah.
You
The
know.
buzz on this
I don't
show-
want to run through
High
that.
Valerian is what they speak
you
of
go.
the
The
dragons.
buzz on this show tells me it's nowhere near as good as the first one.
The numbers are even better.
Yeah.
More people
Yeah.
are watching this
Again,
show than the
a
first
lot
one.
of people are
People
watching
aren't
this
talking
show.
about it.
OutKick 360 rolls on.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Luka Doncic got 48%, excuse me. Now, look, here's the deal. To be the MVP, I think, and I don't think he will, but I think it all matters how fat he comes into camp. That dude can bulk up. Look, you get us Serbians drinking Slivovitz, you give us a free run at some money and some time. This used to be $220. This is $250, and I remember the day it happened at ESPN, walking back from the Cadillac Ranch, the bar right across the street there, right across the parking lot. I went in and I got a bunch of stuff. I got Oreos, white chocolate pretzels. I got a can of Pringles. I got some Suzy Q's. I had it all, and I woke up in the bed in just wrappers, and I let it go, and now I got this. You want a weird stat? Tom Brady's lost 2 games in a row. Lost 2 in a row. I'll give you a weird stat. Tom Brady has not lost 3 football games in a row since 2002. Now, I look at 2002, and I don't think it's that long ago. Hell, it was a pretty good year. Bowling Green went 24-6 under my watch. I took the head coaching job at West Virginia for about 8 days. In my world, I stood up. President threatened to destroy my wife and I told him to stick it. Lost about $3.5 million to go back to a job that paid about $100,000, but I don't care. Sometimes you got to do things right. 2002 was a good year. I didn't even realize Tom Brady was playing in 2002. That's 20 years ago. 9 to 11 Eastern Time at OutKick.com.
What's up, guys? It's Tommy, and in case you missed my last show, here is what you missed. So I know I'm going to get censored and shamed by the COVID fear pornographers for saying this, but am I the only one that finds it a little weird and a little suspicious that young, otherwise healthy, and well-conditioned professional athletes are suddenly experiencing heart and health issues after that good old experimental vaccine? Weird. It's time for final thoughts. We aren't supposed to question the almighty COVID vaccine. I get it. Even if it doesn't prevent COVID, even if vaccinated people have still died from COVID, and even if the booster the government is now recommending has only been tested on 8 lab mice. We are still supposed to sit down and shut up because that's the way science is run these days. No dissent allowed. But luckily, I don't really give a lab rat's hiney about being censored at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. It's freaking weird and suspicious professional athletes are suddenly experiencing health and heart problems after the all but forced COVID vaccine. Here are the facts. Ukraine cannot hold off Russian forces on its own, however noble and valiant its fight has been up to this point. Kudos, but without the seemingly endless supply of money and weapons from other nations like, I don't know, the United States, this conflict isn't going to end with a Ukrainian victory parade. Hate to tell ya, but that's pretty evident. And in the meantime, as we continue to prop up Ukraine, people are dying, and much less, but to add to it, Global energy prices are going through the roof. And hello, winter is coming. Since Joe took office, the U.S. has sent a whopping $16.9 billion to Ukraine and counting. How much more are we going to send and for how long? Oh, and meanwhile, look at our own damn country. We've allowed the population equivalent of Ireland to invade our southern border, but it's our diplomatic duty to protect Ukraine's border in perpetuity and ours is ransacked and bombarded? Some Floridians have also lost everything in Hurricane Ian. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are dying of fentanyl overdose. Inflation is over 8%. Why did, just days ago, the House pass yet another bill to send another $12.3 billion to Ukraine? Tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern for Tommy Lahren is Fearless, where I'll give you some hot takes and, of course, some final thoughts.
Glad you're with us. Hour number 2 is here. OutKick 360 rolls on. Plenty of NFL and college football discussion headed your way. We've got our overreaction chat about playoff elimination, plus coaches on the hot seat in the NFL. The headline today is with Aaron Judge, and here's John Sterling's call on WFAN last night of home run number 62.
Here's the 1-1. Swung on. There it goes. Deep left. It is high. It is far. It is gone. Number 62 to set the new American League record. Aaron Judge hits his 62nd. All the Yankees out of the dugout to greet him. Just think of it. 3 Yankee right fielders. The Babe hitting 60 and 27. The Jolly Roger hitting 61 and 61. And now Aaron Judge hits his 62nd home run, the most home runs any American leaguer has hit in a single season. And the American League has been alive for 120 years. This is Judgment Day. Case closed.
There is John Sterling.
Got into Judgment Day also, so two cliches.
Very
in
dramatic
the
right there. This is Judgment Day.
So, I mean, he
Case
has
closed.
that whole Jolly Roger and the Babe, all that's totally scripted. He's been sitting on that
Yeah.
for
Well, I mean, he's been
time.
he's been waiting as long as everyone else for this.
I'm telling you, the
Michael
video
K's
of his
was more-
face. And
a little more natural.
Oh, there it goes. And you can almost hear his notes shuffling as happens. There it goes. High, it is far. And that is passing the Jolly Roger.
I hate John Sterling. I like Michael K. I'm used to seeing a radio guy's call, so when they showed John Sterling doing it, it wasn't weird. They showed Michael K doing it. It made me very uncomfortable. K doing it with Cohn next to him and Meredith Morakovitz, their sideline person, also in the booth. It just made me, I don't know, cringe. Seeing the TV guy do the call.
See,
Because you
normally
haven't seen it before, right?
Well, I saw the earlier one during this, but yeah, it's just weird. Like usually when you see them in the booth, it's they're having a little bit
They're
of a
aware of the
conversation
camera
between
being on.
innings or
the
whatever.
camera.
Yeah, and then, Cohn's kind of giving him the thumbs up when it's over. And Kay, and I think it's habitually, I've done this sometimes when you do air stuff, like you finish your statement and you kind of back away from the mic in a dramatic fashion. It just made me very uncomfortable. I didn't like seeing the veil pulled back.
I haven't seen him do it. I've only heard it.
It's like seeing your teacher at Target when you're a kid, you're saying?
Also, he said, this really annoyed me, on the first call of 60, I guess, of 61, he said he throughout the call. He didn't say Aaron Judge's name, which is bad form for a call that's going to be tagged on something. Now, last night he said he on first reference, but second reference he said Aaron Judge. Once that was pointed out to me, Andrew Marchand, the New York Post media critic, pointed it out. I could not get that out of my head. And so last night when I heard it for the first time, I was listening for that right out of the gate.
For the name.
And when he said he on the first one, I was like, oh, he's blowing it. And I was kind of cheering for him to nail it.
For all the pressure of getting the call right, first Aaron Judge has to hit the home run, and he was feeling the pressure. Here's Judge's comments on that and looking at the schedule. and knowing that the time was now if he was going to do it.
I can't lie, the past couple of games, I'd look up and it's the 7th inning, and I'm like, dang, I only got one more at bat. I better figure this out. Never tried to focus on the number, never tried to focus on going out there and doing it. Just go out there and play my game, and if I'm good enough and God willing, it'll happen. So nothing, just having that type of faith, I think, kind of helped me out through this whole process.
And the Rangers pitcher served it up for him on that first at bat.
Yeah, it was a nice pitch.
It was McHenry will join us tomorrow on some of the analytics of it, but that was right in the wheelhouse to get it over with. When will we find out if he's playing? When do they release the lineup for today?
I'm thinking it's it might be either 6:05 or 7:05 Central start. Lineup usually comes out
roughly.
somewhere around now.
Do you owe anything to the fans that probably paid a lot of money
on the road
in hopes that this would happen? For Major League Baseball's sake.
I don't think so.
To play in the game?
I think if he wants to play, he'll play. And he indicated he wants to play.
I would let him play. I mean,
with all this time off,
yeah,
DH him.
Yeah, let him go. Yeah, take the at-bats.
Maybe give him 3. And, if he's on fire and then he's in it for the batting crown somehow, let him keep going. Otherwise, pull him. I thought it was cool that they pulled him last night. That would have been awesome if it was Yankee Stadium.
Yes.
You send him out to right field and then you pull him. The place would have been unbelievable.
In the NFL, this has been the most competitive start to a season that we've seen, at least on the scoreboard. So far, 50 games have been within one score in the fourth quarter. That's the most in the history of the league through week 4. This past week, 15 of 16 games were within one score entering the fourth quarter. That's the most in a single week. And then it was the Sunday night game. Games on Sunday. It was a Sunday night game that wasn't. And through 4 weeks, 23 games have been decided by 3 points or less, and 31 have been decided by 6 points or less. That's the most to this point. That's why the NFL is saying it's the most competitive. And Vrabel said it today here in Nashville. Mike Vrabel, head coach of the Titans, said half the league's 2-2.
Yeah,
Titans are one of them. But I mean, you look around and everyone's had some ups and downs to the point where, as a fan, if you're a fan of the Cowboys, to the Rams, to the Bengals, to the unbeaten Eagles, not much to complain about there, but I'm sure they are complaining about something in Philly. Fan base, for the most part, has been able to have some emotional reactions on Mondays, good and bad, and that's perfect for the NFL.
That's why you mentioned Vrabel. I mean, they played some crappy football in Indianapolis, but they won by a damn 7, and they're 2-2, like you said.
Yeah.
And so knowing that they're not in a great stretch right now, going to Washington this weekend against a really bad team, winning by 7 on a weekend where everybody's playing 3-point games, win by 7 and get to 2-2. Derrick Henry had an interview coming off the field with Christina Pink where he was like, this is frustrating. We got to do a lot better, blah, blah, blah. The kind of reaction you would expect. Then he came out of the locker room where Vrabel clearly told everybody, be happy about this. We did something here. The tone completely changed. I asked Vrabel about that today. Why is the messaging so important? And he went into the, hard to win. Everybody's 8-8, yada, yada. I can understand it. And Henry's tone was completely different coming off the field and after he got, walking orders from the coach.
Almost feels like it's rigged to where everybody's just going to end up having something to be interested about every week. If it goes true to form, Washington wins on Sunday to make things interesting in the NFC East for them a little bit more.
Well,
and
true
then
to form
knock
would be the Titans
down.
playing down to an opponent. That would be true to form.
Yeah, and scoring on the first drive of the game and never scoring again.
It's not as far down for them because they're not as good, but Washington's really bad. But I actually think, it's not as interesting. The close games are interesting, but everybody being 2-2, there are fewer kind of storylines right now. We talked about it yesterday. There's a lot of talk about Philly, but all these other 2-2 teams, I feel like we're kind of waiting to see who's what still, right? Kind of feels like we're stuck in a week 1 uncertainty thing still because a lot of teams haven't identified themselves yet.
Yeah, and then you've got the good teams, I think, that have started slow in some respect and have been able to get back to at least 500, or good teams who gave up a lead or haven't won a close game like Buffalo and come back down 17 points, their first 17-point comeback since 2011, and go win on the road against Baltimore. So I think we're starting to see the turn in the separation, even though we're not seeing much separation in the standing.
What's Dallas, though? I mean, there are a lot of teams you could look at and say, what's this team? We could do a segment. We wouldn't have any answer.
I want to bring up Dallas, too, because there are 4 teams that I'm thinking the most about right now in the NFL, and it's 2 different eventual showdowns. KC and Buffalo, just for the AFC.
Yep.
I look at them, and every week it's going to be interesting because those offenses are so otherworldly good.
Aaron Judge is not
and those
in
rosters
the lineup.
Are good.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So Aaron Judge not playing.
And all the games are by 4:10 today to end the season. Sorry.
So those 2 teams I'm circling right now as an eventual showdown. And in the NFC, it's Eagles and Cowboys that are interesting to me because Cooper Rush is undefeated. So part of me is thinking, okay, well, then what are they with Dak Prescott? Was that just a really bad blip in week 1 where they couldn't do anything offensively?
Well, they're a defensive football team.
So, but that to me is now a very interesting division battle with those 2 teams.
It is.
So I don't, it's easy to explain Buffalo, Kansas City, but my mind immediately goes to, boy, the NFC East now to me is very interesting with those 2 teams, especially when Dak Prescott gets back.
Well, I think every division in the NFC has got some tremendous storylines because you've got the 49ers now with the right quarterback playing and a top defense, and the Rams as the defending champion. The Rams coming back and having some struggles offensively.
Trying to figure things out.
The 49ers, again, have the head-to-head regular season win. And then in the NFC North, Rodgers looks really good. Guess what?
What is Minnesota?
Minnesota's good.
Yeah.
And they're proving it based on, Kirk Cousins isn't a long-term answer, but I think he's a lot in many ways. He's not putting up the same numbers, but it's very similar to Jalen Hurts, where they have added some talent around him. They're not as run-focused as they were with the previous regime, so they're putting the ball in Jefferson's hands. Thielen came to life again this past week. I mean, you look at them, and I think, man, they've already got a head-to-head win over Green Bay, and now they have positioned themselves, albeit it took the double doink to do it, to come back from London and string together a couple wins here.
I'll give you 2 in the AFC. Cincinnati has kind of found its footing after a 0-2 start.
Yep.
Can they pass protect and come back to life? I'm not ready to give up on them, and that division is wide open. Cleveland's got some life to it. The Ravens are Lamar Jackson is a terror, but the defense has some issues, and they're beatable. I think Cincinnati's a very interesting team going forward. And look, before the Tua concussion stuff, Miami was the story of the league. What's his status? What can they do without him for however long he's out? Bridgewater's not a bad backup.
No.
And they're a good team. This is the thing you tell yourself, hey, can we go 500 or can we win 2 out of 3 while our backup quarterback's in? Maybe it's only this one game, because he will have had a mini bye and then a week. But I'm still very intrigued by Miami. The era was as up on Miami as anybody before the concussion stuff came down. So those are 2 teams that I think, Chad, to your point about the Bills and Chiefs, that can enter that conversation and be right there if they straighten things out. Another one I'll bring to you is the Chargers, who things have not gone so well for. I really need to know about Hebert's chest and how long that's going to linger. They lose an offensive lineman for the season. That's a big deal. That's not going to help his chest recover if he's getting hammered.
Yeah.
And they've had maybe as many things go wrong for them early season as anybody.
Well,
but right now that AFC West doesn't look as terrific outside of Kansas City as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, they look. Herbert looked pretty good though against the Texans this past week.
Yeah, he got nice ointment there in playing against the worst team in the league.
But
I don't know who they have next.
But they didn't. I mean, they didn't really hit him.
Yeah.
They did a nice job protecting him in this game.
It was much better than the.
He's delivering the football, but he also wasn't taking too many QB hits like he has been, to where you see him wincing. And
hopefully he's back to normal. That'd be big.
I still think that lingers though longer, don't you? I mean,
you get one hit. I mean, even if he's fine for 2 weeks, you get another hit. and it resurfaces. That would be my question, and that's why I feel a lot of doubt about my Super Bowl champ pick.
Chad, your Super Bowl pick's still alive, right? Both of them?
Yeah. Got to remember who I had in there. Packers beating Chiefs. I think I had Packers over the Chiefs.
Bills, Rams, and I don't feel great about the Rams at all.
Neither have been mathematically eliminated yet.
No.
I can say that.
But we are eliminating
That's
some
always
teams,
good.
if not mathematically, mentally.
Yeah, we will tell them the GTFO. We've got some overreactions to what we've seen through the first month of the season, the first 4 weeks, and we've been eliminating some teams from memory over every week. We'll do this weekly, and also
we don't want you to remember these teams. Right. We're eliminating them from our memory, but not only that, we're going to take it a step further and tell you to not ever think about these teams again.
We will do that. Plus,
even if you're a fan, I want you to not be a fan of these teams anymore.
Coaches on the hot seat as well around the league who we think will get fired in the NFL by the end of the year or right on the Black Monday determination for a lot of franchises. There are a lot of trends that are not going the right way for some coaches who need to win and need to win fast. October will mean a lot. We'll get into that as well next on OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Luka Doncic got 48%, excuse me. Now, look, here's the deal. To be the MVP, I think, and I don't think he will, but I think it all matters how fat he comes into camp. That dude can bulk up. Look, you get us Serbians drinking Slivovitz, you give us a free run at some money and some time. This used to be $220. This is $250, and I remember the day it happened at ESPN, walking back from the Cadillac Ranch, the bar right across the street there, right across the parking lot. I went in and I got a bunch of stuff. I got Oreos, white chocolate pretzels. I got a can of Pringles. I got some Suzy Q's. I had it all, and I woke up in the bed in just wrappers, and I let it go, and now I got this. You want a weird stat? Tom Brady's lost 2 games in a row. Lost 2 in a row. I'll give you a weird stat. Tom Brady has not lost 3 football games in a row since 2002. Now, I look at 2002, and I don't think it's that long ago. Hell, it was a pretty good year. Bowling Green went 24-6 under my watch. I took the head coaching job at West Virginia for about 8 days. In my world, I stood up. President threatened to destroy my wife and I told him to stick it. Lost about $3.5 million to go back to a job that paid about $100,000, but I don't care. Sometimes you got to do things right. 2002 was a good year. I didn't even realize Tom Brady was playing in 2002. That's 20 years ago. 9 to 11 Eastern Time at OutKick.com.
What's up, guys? It's Tommy, and in case you missed my last show, here is what you missed. So I know I'm going to get censored and shamed by the COVID fear pornographers for saying this, but am I the only one that finds it a little weird and a little suspicious that young, otherwise healthy, and well-conditioned professional athletes are suddenly experiencing heart and health issues after that good old experimental vaccine? Weird. It's time for final thoughts. We aren't supposed to question the almighty COVID vaccine. I get it. Even if it doesn't prevent COVID, even if vaccinated people have still died from COVID, and even if the booster the government is now recommending has only been tested on 8 lab mice, we are still supposed to sit down and shut up because that's the way science is run these days. No dissent allowed. But luckily, I don't really give a lab rat's hiney about being censored at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. It's freaking weird and suspicious professional athletes are suddenly experiencing health and heart problems after the all but forced COVID vaccine. Here are the facts. Ukraine cannot hold off Russian forces on its own, however noble and valiant its fight has been up to this point. Kudos, but without the seemingly endless supply of money and weapons from other nations like, I don't know, the United States, this conflict isn't going to end with a Ukrainian victory parade. Hate to tell ya, but that's pretty evident. And in the meantime, as we continue to prop up Ukraine, people are dying, and much less, but to add to it, global energy prices are going through the roof. And hello, winter is coming. Since Joe took office, the U.S. has sent a whopping $16.9 billion to Ukraine and counting. How much more are we going to send and for how long? Oh, and meanwhile, look at our own damn country. We've allowed the population equivalent of Ireland to invade our southern border, but it's our diplomatic duty to protect Ukraine's border in perpetuity and ours is ransacked and bombarded? Some Floridians have also lost everything in Hurricane Ian. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are dying of fentanyl overdose. Inflation is over 8%. Why did, just days ago, the House pass yet another bill to send another $12.3 billion to Ukraine? Tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern for Tommy Lahren is Fearless, where I'll give you some hot takes and, of course, some final thoughts.
From 6th and Peabody, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. OutKick 360 rolls on. The crew is all here. You can watch the show live, streaming live at OutKick.com, and listen on this great radio station. Guys, each week we're eliminating a team. Across the NFL, we're saying we're done with them. GTFO. Started this last week, and each week we'll be keeping up with it. Here were mine from last week, where I have eliminated the Houston Texans. This is an easy one. I mean, Texans are done, and we'll find out if they want to make a coaching change or not, like they did last year with a one-and-done coach. I eliminated the Raiders at 0-3. You know, at 0-2, everyone's pointing to the extra game and how you can climb out of this. And I know the Raiders got a big win against the Broncos, but the 0-3 hole will come back to haunt them, where there will not be margin for error, and they will have some bumps in the road against some quality opponents down the line. And the Jets, they needed Wilson to start the season. He couldn't, and they needed a miraculous comeback, one of the best we've seen with under 2 minutes on the road against Cleveland. And they needed to, have an opportunity to face Mitchell Trubisky for a half to get a couple wins on the season. I'm done with the Jets, even though I like some young talent. I believe it's a year too early to buy into whatever they're trying to build because their quarterback started the season late. This week, an easy one, a layup for me with the Carolina Panthers. After the Arizona Cardinals go on the road and beat them last week in Carolina, they now will face the 49ers, Rams, and Bucks over the next 3 weeks on their schedule. They have Baker Mayfield and looking for him to cash in on that one-year deal. He's been awful. Sam Darnold isn't ready to return, and the fact that that's even a sentence gives you an idea of how bad it is in Carolina right now for Matt Rule and that franchise. They're done. GTFO Carolina Panthers this week for me.
Boy, how quickly it fell apart for Baker Mayfield
in
Carolina. That happened in a hurry. I like all of these. I like all these so much. I think I'm up next. So I'm going next to my list now, and I'm going to share some of these with you, Hutton. So the Texans, I had a buddy once who just kind of nonchalantly said, hey, they're back, right? Talking about, well, this team's back. The Texans, not back.
Not back.
Texans, in fact, dead. I'm going to go with the Texans. I'm going to stay in the actually, let's go to the two that I had last week first. Carolina Panthers, Hutton, totally agree with you. The fact now that Baker Mayfield was even worse this past week and that they're already almost done with him in Carolina.
But they have to stick with him.
That's a team headed for a top 2 or 3 draft pick. They're terrible. The Washington Commanders, not good. I think the Titans are going to go in there and beat them this week and further cement their status as dead in the National Football League. And the team that I'm adding to the list this week, let's go back to the AFC South. The terrible AFC South, and I'm going to go with a team that's been terrible so far. The Indianapolis Colts. Matt Ryan, if you get within 5 yards of that guy, he fumbles right now. Their star players aren't playing like star players. Their role players aren't doing anything. They had a golden opportunity when the Titans decided to just play defense for an entire half on Sunday, and they had 20 plays for 28 yards in the second half. Could not find a way to win the game. Costly turnovers throughout. Colts, they're going nowhere. They're dead.
I think it's bold, Chad. I don't think they're going anywhere either, but you have better, deader choices because the Colts are in a crap division. And if Ryan Tannehill breaks his ankle and Trevor Lawrence, turns south, there is a path for the Colts that's better than some teams that you don't have an X over.
I don't want to steal any of your thunder here, Paul, but quickly I'm going to go through other considerations as to why I'm picking the Colts ahead of them. Seattle, Geno Smith is playing great. They're playing much better offense than I expected.
I agree there.
I figured they would be dead by now, but they're not. Pittsburgh, I want to see Kenny Pickett one more game. If he goes out there and throws 4 interceptions and they lose again, then they were in consideration for me this week. But not now. Plus, they have Mike Tomlin as a head coach who's never had a losing season in the NFL. So I'm going to wait a tick on that.
You're going to wait. He faces the Bills this week.
What I'm saying, guys, is Mike Tomlin, give me the greater than sign than Frank Reich on that list.
Yes.
So I'm not going to eliminate Pittsburgh just yet. The Raiders, I think, is an interesting one, but I'm kind of like you, Hutton, and I'm watching that game here in Nashville against the Titans thinking, how is this roster 0-3 at that point? How are they not beating the Titans? And the answer probably is they're just not a very good, cohesive football team, but they go out and get a big win this past week. So those were the ones under consideration for me, but I elected to go with the Colts.
I'll show you who you're missing coming up here.
Okay.
So I missed this last week, so I get to do a 3-pack.
Yes.
Texans are an obvious place to start. They're the worst team in football. I don't think there's much debating that. And the Panthers, you guys have hit on it. I mean, Baker Mayfield was a nice idea. Hasn't panned out.
In theory, Baker Mayfield works out.
Yeah.
He looks like a quarterback that joined his team 5 weeks before it was time to practice. And I was pointing this out. If the time for him to be traded was way earlier. And joining a team right before camp is not easy, and it's no miraculous, turn the switch on for him because you're joining a completely new group, and you're joining a group that's not nearly as talented.
I think you're also joining a group that probably has a good feeling that its coach is a dead man walking. We're going to get to that in a separate segment, but there's a certain vibe that goes with that. Washington Commanders are just not very good, and that's another dysfunctional franchise. There's some talent there, but not enough to be cohesive and be any good. The team you're clearly missing here, and they're 2 good candidates. Hutton took one. The Jets aren't going to the playoffs, though they're talent. The team that has very little talent is the Chicago Bears, who are absolutely going nowhere.
Yeah,
Justin Fields can't do a thing. I mean, the over-under on his passing yards is like 120 going into games. You're not winning in the modern NFL with 120 passing yards a game unless you have some kind of outstanding defense. And newsflash, boys, the Chicago Bears do not have some kind of outstanding defense. One of the only reasons their record isn't miserable is because God gave them a monsoon on opening day against San Francisco when Trey Lance was still of able body. Chicago Bears are awful.
Pretty sure Johnny Majors in 1951 was a better passer as a halfback than what we're seeing right now from Justin Fields in Chicago. Very similar offenses, too.
I don't feel any danger about eliminating the Bears.
No.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's one I was not thinking about, but I definitely had them on my list as well.
So
this is an easy game now that's going to get progressively harder. I like it.
Well, but you've got to.
Well, we're also going to look progressively dumber when, for instance,
one of these teams will make
the
a run.
Indianapolis Colts win 6 in a row here coming up.
Yeah,
the
and
Colts
we'll mock you, and it'll be fun.
I don't trust. I think we will eventually see. Pickett will take the Steelers on some type of run, But how long does that last without T.J. Watt back? Like, how healthy is he a month from now? Is he really able to come back from that pectoral injury in week 1? They are 0-7-1 without him. They need him as much as they need a change at quarterback from Trubisky.
I'm not looking to get ahead of the curve in this game. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like, I feel like the Steelers are going to take a turn for the worse here, so I'm going to – like, I thought about the Colts in that regard with some recency bias because I thought they really, really were bad on Sunday. And I don't think they're going anywhere either. But I think they're still breathing healthily right now.
Well,
but their time's coming for an action.
If I'm looking at Vegas versus Indy right now, the Colts' saving grace is their fourth quarter in Houston in week 1 to get a tie.
Yeah.
Because that's what allowed a terrible Steelers team last year to get in the playoffs, was their tie against Detroit.
It's a differentiator.
So, the 0-3 start for Las Vegas, that's going to come back to bite them later because when December rolls around, they can't have a room for error. There's no wiggle room there. The Colts have it because they have that half game with the tie in there. And, Chad, I do think they'll figure things out with Matt Ryan and gel. I'm with you, though. Ultimately, I think it's too little too late. They can also point to injuries at quarterback right now across the AFC. You've got Russell Wilson, who's dealing with a shoulder issue. Eventually, he's got to click with his new group. And then in Miami, where who knows about Tua and how long the concussion protocol will last. How good will Teddy Bridgewater be? And then in New England, is Mac Jones capable of coming back soon with a high ankle sprain? Generally, that takes a while. So the Colts have reason for optimism, even though we're telling you there's no reason for optimism.
Well, here's the way I look at it, too. Jonathan Taylor's not going to play on Thursday Night Football.
Right.
That feels like a desperate situation for both Broncos and Colts in this game.
And I don't think Denver's very good.
No, but
you and I have both been down on Denver.
I don't think they're losing at home to this Colts team without Jonathan Taylor either. So
unless Melvin Gordon wants to fumble a lot.
Give me the Broncos in that game, and then when that happens,
Frank Reich's not very good, but he's better than Nathaniel Hackett. In the coaching decision-making.
I think you might be better than Nathaniel Hackett if you could coach the Broncos.
And I'm not very good. I don't know the intricacies of line play. I'm not a good clock manager.
This is what we discovered with Nathaniel Hackett. All you needed to be an NFL head coach is to have a wicked backhand in ping pong to be able to play with Aaron Rodgers and be his buddy. Because that's what, hey, this guy came in and he played ping pong with him and they're pals. And Aaron Rodgers has never been happier than just palling around the facility with old Nathaniel Hackett.
Do we have a lot of ping pong
video? He parlayed
video?
that into a head coaching
Do we
job.
just know about the ping pong, or have we seen some of the ping pong?
No, it was something on.
Feels like it should be real sports. There should be video.
One of
ping
these
pong.
primetime games I was watching, they went to the sideline reporter, and Nathaniel Hackett really bonded over ping pong with Aaron Rodgers.
Then did they do a graphic like where they put up the yardage per game and had like a ping pong thing? They've really gone out of control with some of the Monday Night Football graphics.
So here's what I want to see now moving forward.
Or Sunday Night Football
Nathaniel
graphics.
Hackett, who I've already buried as a head coach in the NFL, is going to be a failure, probably a one and done. I want to see, similar to the way actors in Hollywood try to avoid being typecasted in one part, they might turn down a part that could be lucrative because they don't want to only get offered that type of role from there forward. I want NFL owners and GMs to stop looking at people associated with great quarterback play that are their position coaches as plausible NFL head coaching targets.
It's worked a lot.
Where?
Shanahan, McVay.
What's the great quarterback, though, that they coached? They're from an actual coaching tree. I'm talking
that
about
had success
I'm talking
with a lot
about
of
Nathaniel
quarterbacks.
Hackett. I'm talking about
Adam Gase. Those are the two
Adam
big
Gase
examples.
in Miami and with the Jets, who's connected to Peyton Manning. Here's my point. It doesn't have to be a disqualifier if you've done more than that and you've done a lot of other varied things. Maybe you've worked with a bad quarterback and gotten more out of them than expected. But I hate let's go to Pat Mahomes' quarterback coach next and make him a head coach. Unless you're the person that devised which we know it's Andy Reid, and he's not going to leave. But if you're the person who helped devise the offense that unlocks something
Matt
for a player
Nagy got a job out
previously unseen, then go for it.
Matt Nagy's your guy.
And how'd that work
he was
out?
a fail. Yeah. Well, I think you're making
well,
a
and
good
then
point.
his quarterback coach is now the play caller in New York for the Giants, Mike Kafka.
I
So
just
he was there last year.
Do more than that. I'm fine with you hiring young guys but
yeah, the McVay types have done more than that. LaFleur, McDaniel,
Cincinnati, Zach
O'Connell.
Taylor. If you
Zach
told
Taylor.
me, Nathaniel Hackett, and I'm going through his entire resume right now, but his biggest claim to fame,
other than his father.
Yeah, other than his father, he was offensive coordinator for 3 years with the Jags, and then he went to be offensive coordinator, quarterback coach with Green Bay and
So
Rodgers,
is he of the Bortles era?
I think so, 2016 to 2018.
Yeah.
The board. So he was there for 2017,
Which they went to the AFC Championship game.
I just need to see more than that with more variety to be an NFL head coach. I think that should be I think Adam Gase.
Then you're going to hire a lot of retreads then if you do that.
I don't know. I mean,
who's qualified based on that?
So Mike McDaniel. Okay, I think this is an example, and you might say, well, he hasn't done a lot, but he is of the Shanahan tree.
Mm-hmm.
He's been at different places. He's a run game guy, not necessarily the quarterback guy. It's just outside the box with him. I'm probably contradicting myself a little bit because it's not like he has this long resume. He's a young guy. But
he's not a hem of the garment guy. That's what you're against, the hem of the garment
I
guy.
like that resume.
Oh, he's been that
better.
he was there. That's the whole background of him. Everywhere Kyle Shanahan has gone, he has followed, starting with Washington all the way through Houston and everywhere.
Hem of the quarterback garment.
Yeah, I'm
guy.
saying not him of the player. Just benefiting from a great, generational quarterback is different from even following a coach.
He's creating a small category that's a Gase and Hackett right now.
Yeah, it's kind of so it's the equivalent. The NFL equivalent to me is a guy attached to a great quarterback where the quarterback is doing pretty much all the work for the offense. Getting the big promotion and getting a head coaching gig, to me, is akin to a number of failed Nick Saban assistants that got big-time head coaching opportunities because they were so closely associated with Nick Saban. That's the college pro difference. College, it's attachment to the coach that gets you a job you're probably not ready for or equipped to handle. And in the NFL, it can be attached to the player.
The McVay tree is just sick. I mean, the names that we just lit, the McShay-Shanahan deal is just crazy.
Yeah, and then you have the guys who are, the grunt work guys. And you've got
Arthur Smith.
Arthur Smith comes to mind because he's coached a lot of different positions. He was a play caller. He made the players with him better. And then
survived multiple coaches.
Since he's left, the offense is worse for a number of reasons, including their play caller, because he's not Arthur Smith. And so now he's in Atlanta taking heat because he's a run-first offense right now as they try to figure out what they're building at quarterback long-term.
Next year, the Falcons will be good.
Yeah, and they're
2-2 this year.
They've lost. They've got, but their backups in at running back now.
Yeah, Patterson.
Yeah, so Cordell Patterson's out for at least a month. But they're still. I mean, they're running it at a clip where, I mean, someone was joking about just running the option.
They're better than they have
so
business being, and he's one of those coaches. I think Blank's a good owner with patience who understands what he inherited in terms of personnel and what he inherited in terms of cap. And next year, they get out from under that cap. They can shop for some legit free agents. They'll probably be in reasonably good draft position again. And if Ritter takes over from Mariota somewhere here, they'll get a read on Ritter, and they'll know if they need a quarterback.
But the only detriment to that long-term argument is everyone knew and knows they wanted Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And that's why they're paying Matt Ryan, even though Matt Ryan's not there. So, like, the fan base is saying, like, we're just going to run all this. Can we not? We traded Matt Ryan away. We're paying the salary. You can't have him here. And the reason why they don't want him there is because Matt Ryan looks over his shoulder and says, you were chasing Deshaun Watson.
Well, do you want him there based on what he's doing in Indianapolis?
Well, he was, have you
I mean, based on the cash, maybe.
I mean, you're paying him. So they're hamstrung because they're so tied up financially. And it's like, well, you traded this guy away, and now we're just kind of waiting to see you play Ritter, but they're not going to because Mariota's in there right now.
Yeah, he's doing all right. But you know my theory on that. He'll get hurt.
He'll get hurt eventually. And he'll get hurt running, which is what they're doing. But he's got young talent around him with Drake London, who's played well. Kyle Pitts, who they're finally distributing to. But they have over the last couple of weeks there.
They've done a decent job. It's a slow build, though. And that's what's frustrating probably to Atlanta fans is you see some teams do it quick. And Atlanta's structure is not built for the quick turn.
But what's the rush if that division is going to continue to disappoint and they're going to hang around a little bit to move to finding out what you have in Ritter? Right? I mean, just keep it going.
Well, because are you drafting a quarterback next year is the big question.
But if Mariota's going to be as bad as people expect,
but he hasn't been, so they can't. It's not that.
So
it's not that.
You're
simple.
a quarter in. At some point, the clock starts ticking on you having to figure out next year.
I understand, but you may not figure that out that you're out of the playoff race in that division for a long time.
It's another conundrum for them.
Just like last year for them.
Yeah. So I don't. You try to win. I mean, that's first and foremost. You play
let the
guy.
GM worry about
even
it.
if you're sacrificing the ability to find out what you have in your backup quarterback, you play to win until it's lost, and then you find out.
And Arthur,
that could take a while.
Let's Fontenot worry about it.
And how we've been discussing the Falcons here is the way he replied to the media there, which is, well, you've already been writing my obituary already, so what does it matter if we lose week 1?
We're already dead, so we're not scared.
And he's like, we're going to continue to do this. We've got the entire season ahead of us, and now you look over and you see Atlanta and what they've done, and know that they have the majority of their division games coming up. The Colts, meanwhile, they're going to be done with the Jags and the Titans by October 23rd. You know?
Such bad scheduling for Titans-Colts to be over that quickly.
It was last year,
And it was last year. So, I mean, I can understand a one-year blip, but then you look at the schedule, and when you're looking at it, you go, didn't that happen last year? We can't do that 2 years in a row. I understand it's complicated, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to happen to other teams and other division rivalries. That second Titans-Colts game has to be in December.
Patriots quarterback Mac Jones returned to practice today.
Is that a high ankle sprain?
Yes.
There's no way he's going to be all right to go.
And it was week 3 when he suffered it. We're going into week 5. I mean, high ankle sprains.
Limited.
I just said during the open portion of practice, which was a light session, generally speaking. I'm reading this from The Athletic. Bill Belichick said post-practice he's making progress, called him day to day.
Yeah. I would be really surprised if it's truly a high ankle sprain if he's back after missing one game.
Yeah, for anyone like, Mac's back, let's play him in fantasy. No, I don't think he's playing. But this is now because he was at practice last week and did something, and he did enough to where Mike Reese and others were mentioning it. And you start to go, maybe sooner rather than later.
But it'll probably be, we don't know about concussion protocol
for
Hoyer. So, I mean, their quarterback thing, if the Giants weren't in the mess, the Patriots would be making headlines for quarterback uncertainty.
What if it was Bailey Zappi that's the next Tom Brady all along and not Mac Jones? Wouldn't that be a twist?
That would be amazing to have that story again 25 years later.
Mac Jones isn't Brady, he's Bledsoe. And now it's making way for Bailey Zappi to come in from Western Kentucky and to dominate.
Except you're insulting Bledsoe because Bledsoe did some things.
Bledsoe had accomplished a few things in his career.
Yeah. But I like where you're going. That would be very interesting. And I would definitely remember to give you credit for it. I think I would.
I will never allow you not to give me credit for it if it happens.
So we're covered.
I'll never forget it.
We're covered.
I'll say, remember that day in 2022 when I said Bailey Zappi's the next Tom Brady? And you guys laughed?
He's got a great arm.
And that Jones is Bledsoe.
He made some history at Lambeau. The first appearance for a career and throwing a touchdown pass. No one had ever done that at Lambeau before.
Really?
And Bailey, making your first appearance in the NFL, and then he came in and threw a touchdown pass.
You would think some rookie quarterback like
Open
Vikings or Bears.
Open the season there,
Well,
yeah.
not Bears, so that's why it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because the Bears have
that's
been
it.
a regular opening day opponent at Lambeau, and the Bears have never had a rookie quarterback throw a
You
touchdown
mean Mike
pass.
Tomczak didn't start his career off with a touchdown pass in Lambeau?
I've
I'm
solved the
shocked.
mystery on that stat.
Also, there was a prop in Vegas for first rookie quarterback to throw a touchdown pass. It's Bailey Zappi.
Nobody won it.
Nobody
cashed
No one that
prop.
I've seen.
If you have that, please tweet the ticket.
I think it was Pickett or Ritter that were the most bet options there, and it ends up being Bailey Zappi from Western Kentucky.
Love it.
Hit us up at OutKick 360. Coming up, we discuss home run ball number 62, the value, and what we would do with it. And have we seen reports on what the Yankees are trying to do?
No,
for the
this
baseball?
is Simon's big question. My son
What's the
wants
offer?
to know if the Yankees will pay the $1 million.
Let's discuss
or the
this.
$2 million.
That's next on OutKick 360.
Hey, this is David Hookstead, host of American Joyride. On our latest episode, I sat down with Army veteran and former operator Jesse Betcher to hear stories about his time in the service just like this. This is one of my favorite questions. I love asking, what's the funniest thing you ever saw while deployed?
Oh man, there's some funny things. So people, I don't know, they think combat is all like, killing and blood and guts, or whatever. Man, I laughed every day overseas. We got into a couple. I can't think of the funniest thing, but something that just comes into my mind was a couple little pranks. And I'm not a big prank kind of guy.
Me either.
And so if somebody pulls a prank on me, I will log it, but I usually won't retaliate, because I'll think about it. And then but if it happens again, I'm going to get you back. If you pull a prank on me, I'm going to get you back like so much worse than you got me. And my kids know that. So there's no pranking that goes on in this house because my kids are well aware that they want, as an example. So we, over in Iraq one time, those old alarm clocks with two bells on top and the big dinger in the top?
Yeah.
So there was one of those in our safe house. I don't know where it came from, but it was an electric one. So you didn't hear the ticking noise. So it was silent but it still had the big dinger with the bells on top. Anyway, so we're, like I said, we do stuff at night. So in the daytime we sleep. Well, somebody had, we build these like bunks out of plywood and 2x4. So we had these wooden bunk beds, and somebody had taken some Velcro and stuck this thing up underneath my bed to go off at like 11 a.m., which is like right in the middle of my level 4 REM sleep, and this thing is super loud, and you wake up and it's completely dark in there because we blacken in all the windows to keep the sunlight out so we can sleep. So I wake up and this thing's going off and I can't find it because it's Velcroed up under the bed. And I didn't do anything. And then it happened again. It was hidden up kind of like in behind a bookshelf. Like a week later, it goes off again in the middle of my sleep cycle. And I don't know who's done it yet, but there's 4 of us in this room. So I know it's not one of those 3 guys. So there's only probably 8 of us total in the house. So I'm like, okay, I got to narrow it down to 4 guys. And then it goes off a third time. This time they got real creative and they put it up in a ventilation duct where they actually had to unscrew the grate in front of the vent, put it inside there, and then screw it back on. So I couldn't even get to it to turn it off. But now I had it narrowed down to 2 guys. And the good thing is these 2 guys lived in a separate part of the house where they had their own room and their own shared bathroom. So what I did is I took a can of like heavy industrial strength pepper spray, and I just sprayed it on the toilet seat. And then I just sprayed it on and then just kind of wiped it off, leaving a film on there. And the next day, a guy named Kyle Lamb, I don't think I've told this story publicly before, but so Kyle Lamb comes into my room, and I've only seen Kyle mad twice in my life, and he was furious. And he comes in, and I'm sound asleep, and he comes in and starts screaming at me, poking his finger in my chest, and he's like, "What did you put on the toilet paper?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, man." He's like, "What did you put on?" And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, I guess he he went out in the room where the other guys were. And he dropped his pants, and his whole ass and back of his legs were bright red and just like burning because he didn't know what it was.
Right. Make sure to catch the full episode tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on OutKick.
OutKick 360 rolls on across the OutKick network. So we know Judge is not in the lineup, which means 62 is 62
Golden
on the
ticket.
home run
He
baseball.
might pinch hit.
Oh, gosh.
Huh.
I'm just thinking the guy holding on to 62.
Oh.
When he comes into pinch hit, just
There's no way. Wait,
how nervous you would be, though.
there's no
way.
there's no impact win or lose here,
no,
right?
no.
At all.
Do they have 99 wins? There's no impact to anything
Paul,
playoff-wise.
they're not
Okay.
going to pinch hit Judge, try to get to 100 wins.
I mean, if you're in a crucial situation in this
No,
game, why not
no,
throw him up to bat?
No. The Marlins are minus
I mean, if
195 against the Braves
if
today
you're-
because they're not playing anyone.
If you're not going to let him play at DH just to extend his home run record in the AL, you're not going to care
Yeah, they're
about
not
a crucial moment in the game.
They're not going to suddenly
If
be
it's-
like, you know what? Screw these Rangers.
I'm not saying like it's a major thing, but I'm saying if you're down 3-2 and the pitching matchup's good for Judge, why wouldn't you put him up just for one at bat and then put him back on the bench?
Every pitching matchup is good for Judge.
Yeah, there's no
I
way.
mean-
That by not
I think it's conceivable
by
he
not
gets an
starting
at-bat.
them. No, by not starting them, they're not
I
playing.
wanted them to play him.
He is ineligible to play today if they're not starting him.
But
I mean, it's a funny thing to think about them bringing him up in a pinch hit situation just because the nerves the guy holding on to the 60-second home run.
So what is
It's 1-1 bottom of the third.
So the best offer is the standing offer of $2 million. Is that correct?
Well, that's the only offer that I'm aware of.
Well,
So-
the story that I've seen, that there's multiple out there that have said that multiple people have offered $1 million.
Paul, 99 and 62. The Yankees are at 99 wins right now.
I want that. I want them to win today. I don't care if Judge is involved.
Braves are 101 and 60.
1-1 bottom of the third.
How long would you guys hold on to the baseball?
I would sell,
Immediately.
I would get
I
some
would
advice.
sell it to.
So the guy, real quick, the guy who caught 703 for Pujols did not have his baseball verified when he left the ballpark.
That is idiotic.
And so immediately, I don't know, it may have been Rivera, may have been someone else. Last night, you knew the section, the row, the seat, all of it for last night, and he was getting it verified. The guy who caught 703 did not get it verified, so it's not worth nearly as much.
Well, were they changing out the balls for pull holes like they were doing for Judge?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to
were.
that. But Chad, like, do you, knowing that you've got it verified and you can just move on and get your money, do you sell it now or do you wait? Because there are going to be more people involved in the process if you wait. Generally speaking.
Hutton, if there was someone with a standing $2 million offer to me and there was no one else calling me, offering more, I would crawl to that person.
To Jerry Jones.
Yeah, I would crawl, Jerry Jones style, I'd army crawl across this great nation to that person and accept the $2 million for the ball.
I would as well. I don't see why the market would change a heck of a lot. I'd get advice from somebody that's expert on such things, but to the question we asked kind of as a tease, like, do you foresee a team ever getting involved in this? I don't recall a team ever getting involved. Like, would the Yankees say, hey, we'll give you $1 million plus, I don't know, this guy's a Texas fan, so we'll strike a deal with the Rangers for season tickets or a box or whatever. Like, is it important to the Yankees to get it to Judge? I don't think the ball is that important to a guy. Like Judge said, I'd like to have it, but it's a huge souvenir for this guy, and I understand it. I think ultimately, the guy's got a lot of important mementos in his career, and having it is not nearly as important to him as it is to the guy that
But what makes it valuable to the person that or the company that wants to
Hall
buy
of Fame
it?
By the way, this was sent to us from Colin, our radio producer. The guy who caught the ball is vice president of Fisher Investments. It's a company that manages $197 billion worldwide. This guy is super rich.
His wife was on The Bachelorette or something?
Corey Yeomans. I saw him interviewed when they were taking him through the concourse to get it authenticated, and he seemed like a very well-to-do guy. I mean, he, was dressed nice, was talking with the security guards and kind of joking around, and they were asking what he's going to do, and it seemed like a guy who'd been interviewed before. I'll put it that way, right? When they were walking through the concourse.
He had brokered a deal before.
Right. He's been in a few boardrooms in his day.
If I'm Aaron Judge, it's not that important to me to have it.
But if someone's offering you $2 million, what are they flipping it for? That's immediately what I'm thinking.
They're sitting on it
But see, I
and
wouldn't
thinking
even care,
it'll
'cause
get
I'm
more
like,
valuable later.
I caught a baseball at a Major League Baseball game and got $2 million for it. Wouldn't bother me what they made off of it.
Hip, hooray.
Headlines next across the NFL and college football.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Luka Doncic got 48%, excuse me. Now, look, here's the deal. To be the MVP, I think, and I don't think he will, but I think it all matters how fat he comes into camp. That dude can bulk up. Look, you get us Serbians drinking Slivovitz, you give us a free run at some money and some time. This used to be $220. This is $250, and I remember the day it happened at ESPN, walking back from the Cadillac Ranch, the bar right across the street there, right across the parking lot. I went in and I got a bunch of stuff. I got Oreos, white chocolate pretzels. I got a can of Pringles. I got some Suzy Q's. I had it all, and I woke up in the bed in just wrappers, and I let it go, and now I got this. You want a weird stat? Tom Brady's lost 2 games in a row. Lost 2 in a row. I'll give you a weird stat. Tom Brady has not lost 3 football games in a row since 2002. Now, I look at 2002, and I don't think it's that long ago. Hell, it was a pretty good year. Bowling Green went 24-6 under my watch. I took the head coaching job at West Virginia for about 8 days. In my world, I stood up. President threatened to destroy my wife and I told him to stick it. Lost about $3.5 million to go back to a job that paid about $100,000, but I don't care. Sometimes you got to do things right. 2002 was a good year. I didn't even realize Tom Brady was playing in 2002. That's 20 years ago. 9 to 11 Eastern Time at OutKick.com.
What's up, guys? It's Tommy, and in case you missed my last show, here is what you missed. So I know I'm going to get censored and shamed by the COVID fear pornographers for saying this, but am I the only one that finds it a little weird and a little suspicious that young, otherwise healthy, and well-conditioned professional athletes are suddenly experiencing heart and health issues after that good old experimental vaccine? Weird. It's time for final thoughts. We aren't supposed to question the almighty COVID vaccine. I get it. even if it doesn't prevent COVID, even if vaccinated people have still died from COVID, and even if the booster the government is now recommending has only been tested on 8 lab mice. We are still supposed to sit down and shut up because that's the way science is run these days. No dissent allowed. But luckily, I don't really give a lab rat's hiney about being censored at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. It's freaking weird and suspicious professional athletes are suddenly experiencing health and heart problems after the all but forced COVID vaccine. Here are the facts. Ukraine cannot hold off Russian forces on its own, however noble and valiant its fight has been up to this point. Kudos, but without the seemingly endless supply of money and weapons from other nations like, I don't know, the United States, this conflict isn't going to end with a Ukrainian victory parade. Hate to tell ya, but that's pretty evident. And in the meantime, as we continue to prop up Ukraine, people are dying, and much less, but to add to it, global energy prices are going through the roof. And hello, winter is coming. Since Joe took office, the U.S. has sent a whopping $16.9 billion to Ukraine and counting. How much more are we going to send and for how long? Oh, and meanwhile, look at our own damn country. We've allowed the population equivalent of Ireland to invade our southern border, but it's our diplomatic duty to protect Ukraine's border in perpetuity and ours is ransacked and bombarded? Some Floridians have also lost everything in Hurricane Ian. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are dying of fentanyl overdose. Inflation is over 8%. Why did, just days ago, the House pass yet another bill to send another $12.3 billion to Ukraine? Tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern for Tommy Lahren is Fearless, where I'll give you some hot takes and, of course, some final thoughts.
Glad you're with us. Just like that, the final hour is here.
Every day it gets quicker and quicker that we get to that last hour. It's a good feeling.
Today,
peaceful, easy feeling.
What could have happened today on the show is both men to my left and my right would have been sweating it out today. But Judge hit 62 last night.
You're right.
And the Braves won. They clinched the NL East.
Wow.
Is this year number 5 in a row?
5 in a row, Hutton. This is the 5th in a row. I was sweating it out last night watching that game. I watched all of that game last night and was completely into it. And it was one of those games, anyone who's watched any baseball knows these games, where you're playing an inferior team and you're outplaying them, but you strand a village on the bases. And that was the Braves. I think Dansby Swanson, the first 6 innings, may have stranded 9 runners on his own. Up with bases loaded, second and third, 2 outs, and the Braves could not push runs home. They're up 2-1, starting in maybe the 5th inning of the game, and they're just holding on for dear life. The Marlins loaded the bases in the 8th, and Minter got the batter to pop out with 2 outs that ended that threat, and then Kenley Jansen with an easy, rare for him, 3 up, 3 down, 9th, and the Braves celebration was on.
I had kind of come to terms with the idea that he wasn't going to get it. And, it's more about the playoffs for me at this stage. I was on my local Nashville radio hit this morning, and they asked me about my confidence level, thinking I was going to be great. And I was like, they said, is this the year? And no.
For the Yankees?
No. Yeah. I have no faith in Cole. Like I said to Johnny Damon, he's going to give up home runs, not be like an ace.
But he went through that stretch where he was great. He turned things around after the start, and he went about 2 months, correct me if I'm wrong here, where his starts were very consistent.
I mean, he set the team strikeout record, beat Ron Guidry, my favorite all-time pitcher, but
he still
just gives up these damn home runs. And Tyone, who's their 4th pitcher, is like 3rd in giving up home runs. And I just think in tight games, they're going to give up too many home runs. Their bullpen, Chapman, can't be on the bullpen roster, but he might be because they've got all these injuries. I just don't have the faith that they're going to kick it in gear. I think they'll win the first series, which would be against Cleveland if the seeding holds.
Okay.
Cleveland
but
plays...
unless somebody beats the Astros in the other series.
It's Cleveland...
Tampa.
Tampa, right. Yeah.
I don't want Tampa either. I want Cleveland. Tampa scares me. But I think they'll get through that series. I don't think they'll get through the Astros.
It should be a fun playoff run for both sides.
Well, the Braves will be playing either St. Louis or Philly, so that's going to be a very compelling series with either one of those two teams. So, yeah, it was nerve-wracking last night. And I'm watching the game and I'm thinking it's a situation where I'm pulling for my team, but part of me is also thinking, Marlins, can you just be the Marlins and stop putting up a fight? There's nothing to play for. You are a day away from hitting the golf course. Please stop putting up a fight.
They want to win one for their outgoing manager.
Yeah.
What becomes of him? What becomes of Don Mattingly?
Is it weird? I really like him.
I really like him too. He's one of my favorite players of all time.
If I'm on his roster or in his lineup, or if I'm in the stands where I know they've struggled to get attendance there, but they have for years. I love that manager. Like, he's always taking up for his players. He gets thrown out maybe too much, and he stirs the pot some.
But he's not probably getting another job, is he?
Is he hard to play for? I mean, I guess it's not a fun environment.
No, I've never heard that about him. I mean, he just had really bad rosters. I mean, it's tough to blame a guy that has not had a ton of talent.
How does he not get another job?
And the talent they get
if that's the case,
is shipped out. I mean, he's not getting another job because they never win. But it's also, is it his fault they don't win? Or is the fact that the Marlins, whenever they get young talent, they get rid of them, and they just haven't been able to hold on anymore. But also,
I think what you're looking for in a manager now is a guy who's going to execute the analytics of the front office. And I don't know how Miami's operated. I don't know anything about them. But is Don Mattingly taking a job to execute the analytics of the front office?
He's a baseball guy.
I mean,
I don't know.
He was good enough for Jeter.
Yeah.
I think Jeter wasn't running I don't suspect Miami was operating that way, and I suspect that's part of why Miami sucks.
Maybe. Like, what's the analytical aspect of what we're seeing from Snitker in Atlanta? He's one of the older guys.
Yeah, he's just kind of an old school, just put him out there, let him go play. They're not going to put a lot of pressure on you.
They're not doing the analytics from the top-down thing, are they? Or to a degree?
How about my stat yesterday, and the Braves pulled off a sacrifice bunt last night? Game 161. They were one game away from being the first team in Major League history to not lay down a sac bunt.
Michael Harris?
I believe it was Michael Harris, who I said the night before tried to bunt once, popped it back.
That's why I was asking.
And then swung away. But he laid a perfect bunt down.
That's amazing.
One of the cool, human aspects of last night was the reaction. Chad, correct me if I'm wrong. It was, I believe, Odorizzi in the dugout.
Yes.
And
who was great.
He was with Charlie Morton.
Who's not been good since he got traded from the Astros, the Braves. He was terrific last night.
And he was with Charlie Morton.
Yep.
Okay. And
they were teammates together in Houston.
And you could tell he felt the pressure of that game.
Yes.
And that the fact that they pulled that off when what has been a struggle for him since he was traded, I mean, he's wiping away some tears. You got Morton there, not consoling him, but telling him, dude, this is now you. This is what we can do now moving forward. We're going to win with you. And I think the win, I'm curious to follow him now in the postseason, because that win and being able to clinch the way they did with him on the mound, now we get to see if that pays off now with some confidence.
Charlie Morton is one of the best guys in baseball. Everyone who's covered him, has played with him, just loves Charlie Morton. He was right there talking to Odorizzi. It's a funny moment because that happened an inning before, where he was in his ear talking to him. Then in the last inning, Odorizzi's almost praying out loud, but he's got a bead of sweat coming down his face, and he's kind of looking up and pacing when Kenley Jansen's in there in the last inning. And right behind him, we talk about opposite ends of the spectrum, you've got rookie Vaughn Grissom, not a care in the world, the second baseman who came in and homered, in his first game at Fenway Park. And he's just chatting it up and laughing with someone, right next to him. They're joking about whatever's going on, and Odorizzi looks like he's about to die.
So how do the matchups stack now for the Braves?
Braves
get the winner of
Philly and St. Louis.
Okay.
So that's going to be a good series. Basically, they avoid the Dodgers until the NLCS.
And the Dodgers would get the Mets if the Mets
The Braves do what the Braves should do.
So you can't play the Mets and the Dodgers, which is good, I would
You're going to
think.
get the winner of the Mets-Dodgers
if the Mets
beat the Padres.
Okay.
So Padres at Citi Field against the Mets.
And who do you fear the most? The Dodgers, I would imagine.
Philly is in St. Louis for 3 games.
And who do you fear the most?
The Dodgers.
Yeah, Dodgers are just...
But outside of the Dodgers?
Mets would be super tense.
Yeah, the Mets feel like a team that would probably choke again.
But it's a Game 7
against
series.
the Braves. But I don't want to see DeGrom and Scherzer and Bassett.
And they've got revenge.
And Bassett's the ERA leader in the National League, is their third starter.
It's a hell of a challenge. That'd be a
speaking
hell of a series.
of analytics, though, Michael McKinry will be on tomorrow. And what he does for the Pirates and a lot of the Bally Sports and other networks is he dives in analytically and will give pitching matchups or where he thinks a series will be determined within a lineup outside of the norm, outside of like Aaron Judge and what he does at the plate. He'll be bringing that aspect to us tomorrow with his analysis. So I'm eager to see how he sets this up with the stats behind the analysis as the playoffs will get started on Friday. And just going back briefly to Odorizzi, what was at stake there? Like, was he worried about not being a part of the playoff roster or something? Like, it looked like he saved his job in what someone described it to me as, this is a guy who at times didn't deserve a spot. He was so bad. And I don't know if it was really to that extent, but like it looked like a guy that just earned a roster spot in the final preseason game of the NFL.
Look, he got traded. He was going to be a late rotation starter, and he was. And he's just been bad for the Braves all year. So this was him being placed into a big moment where you don't want to go into that final day having to pitch Max Fried on an afternoon game and risk, if you lose, you could completely collapse in the final three games. So it was a big moment for him. It's 1-0 Braves early. They had a chance for more. He gives up a solo home run. It's 1-1. And that was it. I think he pitched into the sixth, maybe 5 or 6 complete innings. He was really good. So I think it was more Hutton of, you're new to this team that won the World Series. By the way, won the World Series against his team a year ago, the Astros. You don't want to be the one that comes in and messes up anything. So there's a lot of pressure in that moment when you're the new guy that joins the team midseason. I think he was feeling some of that, but he delivered last night in a pretty pressure-packed situation.
He's not going to be talked about much, but I was thinking about him last night because I heard Judge's comments on the pressure. Like, he was also looking at the schedule. He knew what was at stake, trying to hit 62, and there was relief post-game with that, and you could see the relief without even needing to talk to him from the Braves dugout, too.
He had a good line, Judge. He said everybody could sit down and watch a game now.
Yeah, including him today.
Now it's his turn to sit down and watch also. Hey, one other comment on the post-game celebration with champagne that I watched. I watched probably way too much of it last night.
Yeah.
They're going into the clubhouse for the Braves celebration. Kelly Kroll, who's the sideline reporter for the Braves, they sent her to Miami to take part in the celebration. If you're going to get the big ski goggles for the celebration, put them on.
Would you have them up on her forehead?
She had them up on her forehead. Matt Olson, star first baseman for the Braves, has his up on the forehead during the interview. It's almost like, people that would wear the mask and take them off for the interview. They took off the goggles for the interview.
And then
someone came out talking just immediate into the eye of Matt Olson, champagne.
Which stings.
And
this is why you wear the glasses.
Let's not injure someone's eye before the playoffs in this celebration. But she never put them on. She just had them on her head, which looks equally ridiculous as putting them on camera, right? Like, I understand, like, you're okay, I'm on camera, my face, I'm looking at the camera, it's normally uncovered, but you've got these enormous ski goggles on, put them on your eyes. Save yourself from the champagne. It was driving me nuts watching her with the goggles on her forehead and not on her eyes the whole time.
You have players in there that are on the lookout for people not wearing the goggles.
Right.
Exactly.
That's who you see.
Well, she was getting, she had a champagne bath just like everyone else.
Yeah, if you walk in there.
But she's got to keep them on.
You run onto the playing surface and Bobby Wagner sees you, watch out. You walk into that locker room and you want to stay dry, you're screwed.
I respect the hustle. I respect the game. She's staying professional. She's saying, I'm going to present my face to the camera like a reporter
Which is
would.
my job.
But I'm also thinking, if you're going to put the goggles on your head, you've already taken down a layer of professionalism that you would normally have on camera. So
then go all the way.
Just put them on your eyes. It's not going to distract me at all, more than them being on top of your head, which is more distracting because now you're getting hit in the face with champagne and the goggles that can protect you are on your head.
I would love to hear comment from her on this. I would love to hear her hindsight this.
Davey, let's reach out to Kelly Kroll and see if we can get her on. I'd love to go through the intricacies of the champagne
The
celebration.
thought process
And
and the
being in the clubhouse.
execution, and then the hindsighting.
I think that she's going to be gettable because she's got a whole offseason now. Bally Sports will not be having any of these games, so she's done. I believe they all go away from Bally Sports, so she's into her offseason.
Post-game
She
show.
doesn't move on to the Hawks or anything?
I'm sure she's still working. I'm joking, kind of, but
Yeah, she's about to not be seen because she'll be doing
what I'm
Hawks
saying is
pre and post.
she's got a.
So she can wear the glasses on her forehead all she wants
Fair enough.
now.
Fair enough.
She's
Hit
doing a
us
lot
up.
of Atlanta. What is the Atlanta United? What's the team
Yeah.
there?
Soccer?
Now, they actually have a big audience.
They have big crowds. I don't know what the TV audience is
70,000.
like.
Yeah.
Big crowds in the SEC. SEC attendance figures. 11 of the 14 programs average at least 95% capacity after 5 weeks. Mississippi State. Oh,
Can I guess?
yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. Do you guys want to guess?
Vandy, not high.
Yeah.
Let me start. Let me start with Mississippi State.
Yeah, that's why I hesitated because I was like,
Yeah.
well, if we're going to guess,
I got Vandy, not
So
high.
11.
Vandy's
so,
last.
So only one more.
Ole
Mizzou.
Miss, he was
Missouri.
bemoaning.
I
So-
always guess anyone with a rock formation in their end zone is probably not great in attendance.
So,
That's
are you
Missouri.
surprised that Ole Miss is not on this list, considering how much Kiffin has talked about it through 5 games?
It's more of a
Are
student
they
body
next?
issue, I think. So no, and
No,
they do this.
they're at least 95%
Yeah,
capacity.
they
The
do it by
programs who are not.
percentage.
Mississippi State 85.5% capacity. Missouri's 84.7. Vanderbilt's 55.2. Georgia, by the way, the only program averaging 100% stadium capacity. That also surprises me.
Yeah, who did Bama host that nobody went to?
Well, just the fact that they
Bama's won
hosted
so
a
many
team
national
and they're-
titles that
Yeah, but Saban is critical if they're blowing out an opponent and
And
the
they leave
student
at halftime.
section leaves. That surprises me. And then Tennessee sold out Akron, but did not the week prior. It was close to capacity, but again, it's not 100%.
Yeah, we were there.
Ball
It
State.
looked pretty full, but it was not a sellout. I think I want to say it was like 96,000 out of 101 or whatever it is.
I have a
now.
different attendance question. Forgive me if I'm getting the details wrong. I had COVID at the time, which excuses everything.
Brain fog.
Middle Tennessee, the week after the huge win over Miami,
Yes.
had a quote-unquote blackout. And I saw
Yes.
pictures of it. And it's ridiculous to have a blackout when you have that many fans coming to a game. So there are
They did
small groups of people
That's their
dressed,
big night
dressed
game.
in black.
Yeah, it's not
scattered around the stadium, like they bunch
Yeah.
up at least.
You got to wait
But
to
you
see
can't
the
have a
ticket
blackout
sales
if you're
figures
having
before you do
that kind of attendance.
Well, they do
which
it-
I don't blame them. I understand their attendance woes, but why would you have a blackout?
I mean, you
It's
know
also
where I
a
come down
Friday
on this.
night game.
I'm not having gray uniforms. I'm not wearing black uniforms. If my primary colors are blue and white, like that's my program. You know, in no way, shape, form, or fashion am I buying anything that's outside of my school colors uniform.
But also,
I'm
unless you're
traditional like
having
that.
an occasion where you know your stadium is going to have some kind of major attendance, I think you just set yourself up to be goofed on when somebody sends out a picture
Well-
of look at Middle Tennessee's blackout, and there are a few people over here in black and a few people over there in black.
Yeah.
All that it does is the empty seats account on Twitter gets the goof on.
Well, I mean, empty seats can also look down to Hard Rock Stadium, where that win was no fluke against Miami, and they destroyed them.
No, that was
Where-
terrific.
Where Michael
And-
Irvin
and
told
I
Eddie
wish more
George no
people-
comment the other day.
Did he really?
Yeah, he was like, "We're on to conference play." You know, it's not a great start for Mario Cristobal. Look,
By the way, the attendance for the Middle game may have been better in Murfreesboro than it was for Miami against Middle. Did you see the crowd for that
yeah,
game?
there was a weather delay there too.
Yeah,
but yes,
there was no one
yes.
there in the second half.
UCLA could use the marketing strategy of Middle Tennessee as well, based on their crowd.
Yeah.
They've been struggling, but they've been also a surprise this year. I was stunned that they beat Miami the way they
That's
did.
terrific program building moment.
Guys, when we come back, let's get into some coaches on the hot seat across the NFL. We're each going to just make our proclamations on who's out now, like either during the year or right after the season. How many job openings do we see based on the pressure and the need to win immediately for certain guys in the NFL? We will also get to some accolades and awards from week 4 across the league, and we will look ahead to the college football and NFL matchups this weekend. It's all coming up on OutKick 360.
Hey, this is David Hookstead, host of American Joyride. On our latest episode, I sat down with Army veteran and former operator Jesse Betcher to hear stories about his time in the service just like this. This is one of my favorite questions. I love asking, what's the funniest thing you ever saw while deployed?
Oh man, there's some funny things. So people, I don't know, they think combat is all like, killing and blood and guts, or whatever. Man, I laughed every day overseas. We got into a couple. I can't think of the funniest thing, but something that just comes into my mind. It was a couple little pranks, and I'm not a big prank kind of guy.
Me either.
And so if somebody pulls a prank on me, I will log it, but I usually won't retaliate, because I'll think about it. And then but if it happens again, I'm going to get you back. If you pull a prank on me, I'm going to get you back like so much worse than you got me. And my kids know that. So there's no pranking that goes on in this house because my kids are well aware that they want, as an example. So we, over in Iraq one time, those old alarm clocks with two bells on top and the big dinger in the top?
Yeah.
So there was one of those in our safe house. I don't know where it came from, but it was an electric one. So you didn't hear the ticking noise. So it was silent but it still had the big dinger with the bells on top. Anyway, so we're, like I said, we do stuff at night. So in the daytime we sleep. Well, somebody had, we build these like bunks out of plywood and 2x4. So we had these wooden bunk beds, and somebody had taken some Velcro and stuck this thing up underneath my bed to go off at like 11 a.m., which is like right in the middle of my level 4 REM sleep, and this thing is super loud, and you wake up and it's completely dark in there because we blacken in all the windows to keep the sunlight out so we can sleep. So I wake up and this thing's going off and I can't find it because it's Velcroed up under the bed. And I didn't do anything. And then it happened again. It was hidden up kind of like in behind a bookshelf. Like a week later, it goes off again in the middle of my sleep cycle. And I don't know who's done it yet, but there's 4 of us in this room. So I know it's not one of those 3 guys. So there's only probably 8 of us total in the house. So I'm like, okay, I got to narrow it down to 4 guys. And then it goes off a third time. This time they got real creative and they put it up in a ventilation duct where they actually had to unscrew the grate in front of the vent, put it inside there, and then screw it back on. So I couldn't even get to it to turn it off. But now I had it narrowed down to 2 guys. And the good thing is these 2 guys lived in a separate part of the house where they had their own room and their own shared bathroom. So what I did is I took a can of like heavy industrial strength pepper spray, and I just sprayed it on the toilet seat. And then I just sprayed it on and then just kind of wiped it off, leaving a film on there. And the next day, a guy named Kyle Lamb, I don't think I've told this story publicly before, but so Kyle Lamb comes into my room, and I've only seen Kyle mad twice in my life, and he was furious. And he comes in, and I'm sound asleep, and he comes in and starts screaming at me, poking his finger in my chest, and he's like, "What did you put on the toilet paper?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, man." He's like, "What did you put on?" And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, I guess he went out in the room where the other guys were, and he dropped his pants, and his whole ass and back of his legs were bright red and just like burning because he didn't know what it was.
Right. Make sure to catch the full episode tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on OutKick.
Coming up in 15 minutes, NFL awards. You can read the column at OutKick.com. Have a new MVP. Breaking news alert there. Overreaction for the hot seat. I don't think we're going to overreact at all to this. In fact, I think many of the same coaches that we'll list off here in the NFL, we've already eliminated with our teams for the playoffs. That tells you where we stand with them, and I think many of us will have some crossover here.
There's definitely some crossover.
So here's our premise. We're telling you as of October the 5th who we think will not be on a coaching staff and will be possibly looking for another job or just out of where they currently are, fired by the end of the season, if not during the season. And I'm listing off 5 that immediately come to mind for me, and I'm starting with Cliff Kingsbury because I think it's one or the other, and I know they've extended him. I've got some coaches on here who have been extended this offseason. Kingsbury's facing a lot because of the expectations now with what they've been building. They're about to get Hopkins back into the lineup. I think they're 2 weeks away from that. And they've paid their quarterback. They have upgraded at certain positions. They think they've drafted well on defense, and it's time to win. They have not closed seasons well in recent years, and we know the controversy that took place all offseason. I think Kingsbury's out in Arizona. Matt Rule, I think we knew he was fired before the season even started, and that was with Baker Mayfield getting there and having a chance to prove himself in a prove-it year. Mike McCarthy is quietly doing okay because of Cooper Rush. I think the controversy starts for him whenever Dak Prescott gets healthy and things don't go nearly the way that people think it will whenever he comes back, because then the quarterback controversy starts, and he really needs Dak to play well in order to keep his job, because the defense, while it's going to hold up and be very good, I think when Dak gets back, they're going to open up the offense a bit more, allowing for more turnovers, and we'll see how the offensive line also holds up. I don't think Dak's going to grip the football all that well. It's not I don't hate the guy as a quarterback. I just don't think the mechanics of his throwing hand will help.
Wasn't
this
it
process.
Steve Young we talked about was big on that with the same injury, saying he could not grip the ball?
And I'll also just add in, we know Jerry Jones wants to win, and it's been a while, and he's not getting any younger. And he's been patient with McCarthy. I think he's out. Frank Reich, you guys know where the soapbox I was on all offseason. I think he faces way more pressure than what many people on the outside looking in think. And Irsay, after this season, he's not going to be able to point to Carson Wentz. And if he continues to point at the Titans, he's out. Frank Reich's out. And Ron Rivera spent too much time releasing statements with Washington this past offseason while his owner is not technically the day-to-day owner. And they're not that good. There's only so much they're going to put up with, and I think they have a new head coach there. What do you guys think of the initial list?
I think
it's good.
The most surprising name on the list is Ron Rivera in terms of his established career up until he got that job and the job I thought he would do there, and he has not done. I'm not disagreeing with it.
He's a good stabilizer.
He's on the list for me, too.
I like Ron Rivera.
I think he might go somewhere else to stabilize.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the quarterback thing. We talk about Ryan Tannehill.
Yes.
Ryan Tannehill could go somewhere and stabilize an organization as a quarterback.
Stabilize, but does not elevate.
Yeah.
Both
and
those
Rivera
guys
could
cannot
go
elevate.
stabilize a bad organization, another bad organization, but he's not elevating Washington right now.
Chad.
My list? Let's get to my list. My list, there's going to definitely be some crossover between the two of us. So we're doing this once a month, right, Davey? This is going to be a once-a-month exercise? Okay.
Look how thin.
Yeah. I thought I was going to have a fifth on here. Maybe not.
You like
so you have 4 out.
You like everyone.
Hutton's got 5. I've got 4. Cliff Kingsbury, same reasons you said, Hutton. It's going to be him or Kyler Murray. And I believe it's going to be Cliff Kingsbury that's going to get the heave-ho and not the franchise quarterback.
Paul, I don't want to steal your thunder here, so maybe I should wait on the question. I'll wait because I want to have a conversation on Kingsbury on how he saves his job.
Okay. Matt Rule, I don't believe, is going to save his job, can save his job. He's got a quarterback situation now that seems to be beyond repair. We talked about it earlier. Baker Mayfield getting there so late has not helped anything. His turnovers have not helped anything. it's not even a quarterback controversy because they have no real good option to go behind Mayfield. So it's a mess in Carolina. Matt Rule is lining up right now for the Wisconsin or Nebraska job. That is what he's doing. He's going to get offered one of them, I'm willing to bet. Was a great college coach. He probably needs to go back to college football and try to reclaim his career there. Frank Reich, they've been a disaster this year. By any metric of anticipation for this season and predictions of what this team should be. The offensive line that's the highest paid in football, that's got the highest paid guard in football, is not any good. Jonathan Taylor, their best player, not always clutch. The Matt Ryan experiment, much like most of their experiments with one-and-done mercenary quarterbacks, not going well. They lost 24-0 in Jacksonville. They lost 24-17 at home to what's been a bad Titans team so far this year. Frank Reich, this is it. I think Jim Irsay is done, and this will be his final year as head coach in Indy. And Ron Rivera. The Commanders have been one of the worst teams in football. We just got done talking about it. Great at stabilizing things, not great at elevating things. And once again, he's proving that. Those are my 4 guys right now. Let me give you a little preview of next month's list also.
Okay.
If the Indianapolis Colts go to Denver and win on Thursday, I'm not going to need to wait a month. Thursday night at midnight, that list will be updated to include Nathaniel Hackett of the Broncos. That will be a one and done and out. He will be added to my list if they lose that game.
And I wonder if that's where Paul's going.
That is where Paul is going.
There we go.
Nathaniel Hackett is not making out of this season.
Wow.
It's not just that he's not particularly good and that the Broncos will not be good this season. He was hired by the Bolin Family Trust, and the Bolin Family Trust is out. The Walmart family is in. They're going to want their own guy. And I wonder if they wouldn't try to...
We're going to put him on clearance.
I wonder if they wouldn't try to
making all the
interject
Walmart
themselves in the Sean Payton deal here, though that's not Sean Payton's region of the country. But they're the richest owners in the league now.
By far.
If Sean Payton is interested in hearing the biggest financial offer he could get, it could come from Denver. Though Jerry can certainly compete. I meant to put Mike McCarthy on this list.
Okay.
I think that things will go south in Dallas, kind of for what you were hinting at or talking about, Hut. I think Dak coming back will serve to complicate things. It's a defensive football team that needs to play the style it's been playing. I think they'll wind up losing out to Philadelphia. They could make the playoffs. They'll lose quickly like they always do. The days of sticking with Dave Campo for a long time.
Jason Garrett.
And Jason Garrett for a long time. I mean, Jerry's getting up there. He needs to win it and win it soon. And so I think that the Peyton carrot will be just too big for him to resist. And if he can get him, he's going to get him. And that's going to be the number one reason for getting rid of McCarthy. Never mind McCarthy's shortcomings. Kingsbury, we've covered. Matt Rule, we've covered. Frank Reich, we've covered. I'm surprised Rivera hasn't been able to do more in Washington. And I think it's probably a dysfunctional organization thing as much as anything. And they needed a stable figurehead there, and he's been a stable figurehead there. But if the football's not good enough, the football's not good enough. I don't know where they go from him because they need a guy like him. They just need a guy like him who's also winning more football games. And, I don't trust Daniel Snyder to do any better hiring, he or his wife.
I've got 2 or 3 questions off this list. Keep the list up, Davey, because I want to go through this. So, and I'm going to end with Kingsbury. Of this list, only Matt Rule is getting an immediate job, and it'll be in college.
Yep.
You guys agree?
Yes.
So that's where I'm thinking Kingsbury could get back there too. But I haven't heard him mention like I've heard Matt Rule, which is intriguing to me.
So successful in college.
But he got an NFL job off of it, though. Like there's a college feel to why he was hired.
Yeah, he's got his distinctive offer.
Well, here's an example for you. Would Arizona State right down the road want to hire Cliff Kingsbury if he didn't work out for the Cardinals?
But how do you market it when you
I only want to bring it up because people are automatically like, oh, Matt Rule's going to be a candidate here. But I never hear Kingsbury, and that's what launched him into the league because he was tied in with the college system. And he wasn't great, But he also
But he was better at Temple
Yeah, I mean-
and at Baylor than Kingsbury.
Oh, with
was.
Rule. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I'm interested to see the college jobs and how we start to hear both names, because the agents will get involved and you'll start to hear names. What would it take? I don't think Matt Rule saves his job. I don't think that Frank Reich saves his job unless they're winning the division. I don't think getting in the 7th seed and losing in the wild card round saves his job. You could probably say the same for Mike McCarthy. I don't know. There's just a vibe with ownership with Irsay that I don't think he goes back the day after they're eliminated if they make the playoffs in one game and says, you know what, we're on the right track here.
Is there something else you can point at? It depends on how. Given that scenario, 7th seed, first round loss. Is there something else you can blame?
So
the way he could blame Wentz.
Well, the first round loss would be the Chiefs to the Bills.
There's nothing they could point to about the future getting a lot better, because they've got an aging quarterback once again in this one and done deal. They're not going to have a high draft pick to go draft a quarterback at that point if they're the 7th team in the playoffs. So that's the issues. There's nothing positive to point to in the near future if you're Indy.
Maybe Rivera's the answer. Maybe Frank Reich's the answer. But Kingsbury, I think he can save his gig. I don't know about Hackett yet. There's still a lot to be determined.
I think a playoff berth could save Kingsbury's gig.
And the fact that he's getting Hopkins back and how good Murray and Hopkins have been early in the seasons. I know they failed miserably down the backstretch, and I know Hopkins was hurt for the playoffs last year. But when he comes back, do they just pick up where they've left off to start years?
Look, they're afloat. They're 2-2 in a division that's all 2-2.
Yeah, and they went on the road, and that was a big game to go on the road and win at Carolina. It was a game
they had to win.
Had to win it, and now they've got it, and now they start to, they're about to go through a track here where, let me pull up their full
Look, these
schedule.
other ones, there's something in evidence for all of them. Kingsbury, we're all projecting.
Yes.
We're all projecting things are going to go bad. And they haven't gone as badly as we projected, because without Hopkins, we thought it would be crap early. Who else did they beat? I don't know. Carolina's not much of a win, but it's the kind of game you've got to win. They beat the
Raiders. Remember that weird
They beat the Raiders,
and
I think we all think that the Raiders are pretty bad. So, they're doing what they need to do right now, but that's much more of a forecasting pick that things are going to go south than these other ones. And you guys aren't with me on Hackett yet. But we're consensus on Rule, Reich, and Rivera, and that's largely
Chad's with you.
Bad stuff. Chad's almost
I'm with you.
me.
He just hasn't been technically put on my list yet.
So just looking at the Cardinals' quick schedule here, just October. They're hosting the Eagles this week.
Loss.
Agreed. They will then travel to Seattle. That's
a
pivot game for both franchises. The loser, I think, of that game probably ends up being who we thought they were.
Yeah,
Geno
I'd take
Smith
Seattle
or Murray.
right now.
Yeah, me too. Then they're hosting the Saints, who are better than their record, but they're still not that good. You know what I mean?
Defensively could be a problem. They're not that good.
I think about the Saints the same way I think the talk was about the Titans at 0-2, where if they're 1-1 and the kick is good in week 1 to win it, the talk is not as detrimental. And last week in London, you have the double doink, and if they hit it, they win it. Cardinals then go on the road against the Vikings. Then they're hosting Seattle. So they've got 2 games against Seattle over the next month.
Those.
And then they're facing 2 good teams in the Saints and the Vikings, Saints defense and Vikings offense.
They could go 2-2 there.
And then they're alive. And then, again, you're working your way in through a wild card berth.
And then Hopkins is back.
And if you finish the season strong, which is what we're trying to set up here.
And they haven't.
If you do that,
well, that would be a reversal of everything they've done under Kingsbury too. Yeah, finishing strong,
and the start would be okay.
And you feel like you've got momentum and you've turned the corner on, choke jobs.
Yeah.
However,
they could start 4-4.
If it starts to around Thanksgiving, if things go crazy on the Cardinals, here to me, you've got the 49ers, Chargers, Patriots around the holidays. If it starts to take a turn, this is an organization that will point fingers. Arizona. They did it last year. Murray and Kingsbury pointed at each other.
Also, what's Kimes' contract? Because Kingsbury got the extension.
They extended both, I think, at the same time.
Both?
Yeah.
That will reduce the finger pointing a little bit. if those two weren't on the same
No, I'm
track.
not. I'm not saying the GM and the head coach. I'm saying
Head coach and the
quarterback and the
quarterback.
head coach.
Yep.
Yeah, where they were joking, but they let Murray call some plays in the preseason
to show him how hard it was. There was the study clause in the contract.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
That all comes
away from
back
Call
up.
of Duty.
That comes back up if they don't finish strong this year. I think they're going to be alive for a bit. So although all three of us are going to have Kingsbury on our lists, and I don't disagree with it at all, I think he's going to be fired. I think he's the one that I would point to that can save his job just based on the schedule and the way they can finish the season.
I like the Arizona State idea. I mean, he's got the charisma.
Colorado.
If he's willing to go
I
out
don't
and
want
recruit
anybody
and sell.
coaching Colorado based on
You want no
how
coach?
bad it's been.
You want a no coach team? Captain's coach?
I don't want to. I would not want to be a
Coach.
coach. I wouldn't want to be Cliff Kingsbury, knowing I'm going to try to turn around a program where other coaches have gone to die.
Well, wouldn't you sooner go be a quarterback coach in the league?
You don't revive your coaching resume there.
Wouldn't you sooner go be
I
a
think you
quarterback
can at
coach in the
Arizona
NFL than go coach Colorado?
Or go be a top-notch college offensive coordinator for someone, which he could get that job easily for a top program that's in need of a coordinator.
Yeah,
Maybe so.
I think it takes a special circumstance for somebody to go coach.
It's hard to know what he sees himself as, though. Matt Rule, if this doesn't work out, I'm sure is going to see himself as a college coach. Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know. It didn't really work out at Texas Tech. His alma mater. It did for a time.
And with Matt Rule, he took the big money.
Yeah.
He took the money and he turned down other jobs because the offer was he didn't have full control of his staff. He turned down the Jets.
Yes.
And Matt Rule took the Panthers job
Jets
because
got
he had
lucky.
full control and he got the money. He got $8 million or something annually.
Controversial contract
Right.
that the other owners were pissed off about.
So to Chad's point, he's like, I don't know what Kingsbury is, college, pro. Rule's a college coach who took the money to go coach in the NFL and has an easier schedule, and no one would blame him for that. But he got college money to go to the Panthers. Kingsbury didn't. He's probably making what he was making. He didn't get upper echelon,
No.
$10 million college salaries.
He doesn't have that kind of an owner.
Right. But he took he leveled up when he probably shouldn't have. But he leveled up, and then they drafted Kyler Murray with the number 1 overall pick in the draft that was held here in Nashville.
I'm asking the question, if it doesn't work out, what's his level down? Is it assistant coach in the NFL? Is it
head coach?
Bad job in college, head coach? Because that's what you're going to get.
I think it's that.
I mean, to me, his ceiling is probably Colorado head coach.
Or is
lower
it
level Power 5?
Or is it Ole Miss whenever Kiffin bolts?
That would make sense.
I mean, that fits.
Yeah.
There are certain programs that fit the vibe there.
That's not too bad of a landing spot.
No.
And he can have the same type of success that Kiffin's. I mean, to me, I think if I'm pairing, I think of those guys in the same description. Kiffin's a bit more ready to bounce at all times, but social media wise, Kingsbury's on social media now the way Kiffin was at Tennessee.
Right.
And he would do more.
Yeah, more recruiting for sure.
I think Cliff Kingsbury will have more success in his next iteration as a college head coach than anything in the NFL. Just personally, that's the way and Matt Rule, it's a no-brainer. He's going to go back to college and be a good head coach again.
And then it becomes fascinating on the next coach at Arizona or Kyler Murray, who they've just invested in.
You want to give you the flip side of that? David Shaw might get fired at Stanford at the end of the year. I think he will be better as an NFL coach
I think so
at some point than in college.
He'd be a good guy for Washington.
He's the rare guy that could eventually just not flame out. He was great at Stanford for a time, but just time himself out of college. And if an NFL owner gave him a chance, I think he'd be a terrific NFL coach.
I'd put him with the Commanders right now.
Yeah.
I like that match. Here's my question. Nebraska, Wisconsin. If you're looking at Rule, Leonard, Aranda, who I don't think's going to those places. Who's the other name or two that we've
Lance
had there?
Leipold from Kansas.
Leipold. How
Matt
are you
Campbell.
stacking that? How attractive is Rule among those successful college coaches right now?
I mean, if you wanted to hire Dave Aranda, I would hire Matt Rule for the same reason. He won big at Baylor. And he took over Baylor when they were coming off scandal and got them good pretty quick. And he won at Temple. He'd be a great hire.
Does Carolina hurt? Does the NFL failure hurt him?
No.
Not in college. I don't think so. I think if you're Nebraska or Wisconsin, you'd love to have Matt Rule. he'd be close to the top of my list.
Hit us up with your thoughts at OutKick 360. Coming up, Paul and Chad will tell me where I'm wrong as I list off the accolades after the first month of the NFL season.
Hey, one other thing, too, before we move on from that.
Yep.
Someone else who's not hurt by NFL failure in the end is Bill O'Brien. I think Wisconsin or Nebraska should look at him. Currently the Alabama offensive coordinator for the job he did at Penn State.
I still think New England should have looked at him for offensive coordinator.
I think Bill O'Brien, though, in the same Bo Pelini vein, and then the whole culture of Wisconsin football, I think he works in those places.
He feels
in those
northeastern
programs
to me.
But it's more of a tough-minded thing. Like Bo Pelini feels northeastern to me, but he's from Youngstown, Ohio.
Right.
In his demeanor. So it works. I mean, it worked for a while there in Nebraska, even though they didn't want to believe it
What does
worked.
Bill O'Brien want? I want to know what Bill O'Brien wants.
That's a good question.
This is OutKick 360.
Hey, this is David Hookstead, host of American Joyride. On our latest episode, I sat down with Army veteran and former operator Jesse Betcher to hear stories about his time in the service just like this. This is one of my favorite questions. I love asking, what's the funniest thing you ever saw while deployed?
Oh man, there's some funny things. So people, I don't know, they think combat is all like, killing and blood and guts or whatever. Man, I laughed every day overseas. We got into a couple, I can't think of the funniest thing, but something that just comes into my mind. It was a couple little pranks. And I'm not a big prank kind of guy.
Me either.
And so if somebody pulls a prank on me, I will log it, but I usually won't retaliate, because I'll think about it. And then but if it happens again, I'm going to get you back. If you pull a prank on me, I'm going to get you back like so much worse than you got me. And my kids know that. So there's no pranking that goes on in this house because my kids are well aware that they want, as an example. So we, over in Iraq one time, those old alarm clocks with two bells on top and the big dinger in the top?
Yeah.
So there was one of those in our safe house. I don't know where it came from, but it was an electric one. So you didn't hear the ticking noise. So it was silent but it still had the big dinger with the bells on top. Anyway, so we're, like I said, we do stuff at night. So in the daytime we sleep. Well, somebody had, we build these like bunks out of plywood and 2x4. So we had these wooden bunk beds, and somebody had taken some Velcro and stuck this thing up underneath my bed to go off at like 11 a.m., which is like right in the middle of my level 4 REM sleep, and this thing is super loud, and you wake up and it's completely dark in there because we blacken in all the windows to keep the sunlight out so we can sleep. So I wake up and this thing's going off and I can't find it because it's Velcroed up under the bed. And I didn't do anything. And then it happened again. It was hidden up kind of like in behind a bookshelf. Like a week later, it goes off again in the middle of my sleep cycle. And I don't know who's done it yet, but there's 4 of us in this room. So I know it's not one of those 3 guys. So there's only probably 8 of us total in the house. So I'm like, okay, I got to narrow it down to 4 guys. And then it goes off a third time. This time they got real creative and they put it up in a ventilation duct where they actually had to unscrew the grate in front of the vent, put it inside there, and then screw it back on. So I couldn't even get to it to turn it off. But now I had it narrowed down to 2 guys. And the good thing is these 2 guys lived in a separate part of the house where they had their own room and their own shared bathroom. So what I did is I took a can of like heavy industrial strength pepper spray, and I just sprayed it on the toilet seat. And then I just sprayed it on and then just kind of wiped it off, leaving a film on there. And the next day, a guy named Kyle Lamb, I don't think I've told this story publicly before, but so Kyle Lamb comes into my room, and I've only seen Kyle mad twice in my life, and he was furious. And he comes in, and I'm sound asleep, and he comes in and starts screaming at me, poking his finger in my chest, and he's like, "What did you put on the toilet paper?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, man." He's like, "What did you put on?" And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, I guess he he went out in the room where the other guys were. And he dropped his pants, and his whole ass and back of his legs were bright red and just like burning because he didn't know what it was.
Right. Make sure to catch the full episode tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on OutKick.
You did this.
OutKick.com is where you can go for NFL Awards Watch in Week 4.
Funny break conversation.
Snuck that one on.
Jalen Hurts is, I think, now the best player. He's the most valuable player through 4 games. He's been consistent. He is making the players around him better. Those players were already really good. He is making them better, and he's distributing the football well. They are running the football at a high clip. I like the dual threat aspect, and for all of the haters on Jalen Hurts, it's tough to find a reason not to buy into the Philadelphia Eagles now, because this is the first time since he's been a professional that he's had the same play caller in a consecutive season. So I think you see the comfortable aspect of what he's being asked to do, and I think even more so we can see where the organization is very comfortable with him. And again, they've put the playmakers around him, much like we've saw in Miami. I've also added Patrick Mahomes to the list. I've hesitated to put, mainly because I think the other guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have been really good. I've added Mahomes in. Jackson's out, and I put Allen back in this week. Mahomes is back because he makes things look so effortless, and he's playing at an MVP caliber rate right now in Kansas City.
I'm buying Hurts.
Yeah, most surprising entry, and I've read your column, Hutton. Most surprising entry this week is definitely Hurts, because he was the guy we were pointing to, those Tua and Hurts, the quarterbacks that, hey, there's no excuses now. Let's see who goes
Zach
out
Wilson
and plays. Yeah, let's see who goes out and plays well. Zach Wilson, 1 game in, 1-0.
Daniel Jones.
Made it work in the end. Not a great stat line, but it was good in the end. So, yeah, I like Hurts on that list.
I'm buying Hurts, except I didn't buy him on the Manning cast.
Yeah, he was not a good Manning cast guest. That was not great.
That's 2 weeks in a row I flipped away from the Manning cast. With last year, I said I was absolutely devoted to and all in.
You know, the problem is he's one of those guys, he's too cool.
Yeah, I was a little too
cool. Too quiet,
Hurts.
cool, like so calm and collected. It doesn't lead to a great guest or conversation because he's just so chill about everything.
And the week before, not chill, Tracy Morgan just had no concept of waiting, that there was a little bit of a delay, and they were stepping all over each other. It was just a car crash.
From a timing perspective, John Hamm was the best at understanding the delay and just allowing it to breathe for a second and then knowing when to get in and out of plays and talk about it. It was a good balance of talking about the game and watching the game together but telling stories.
I do find it a little annoying that the major sports network has a major program with the Mannings, and in order for a guest to be good, he has to understand the delay element.
But
in 2022.
It's hit or miss. They always have one that's got the right setup. They had Jimmy Johnson on, who's on Fox, and he had the perfect setup at his home and wherever he is in South Florida, where he had it on time. Jalen Hurts was on time. There was a camera setup, you could tell.
Yeah.
There was no delay with that.
Oftentimes it's a consideration, though, and it seems to me, technologically speaking, they should be above and beyond that.
Steph Curry was on his own when he was on Monday night, and then John Hamm was on his own. You could tell because there was more of a delay.
I think I'm done putting up with it. When it's a thing like it was for Tracy Morgan, I'm out.
Yeah,
and I really want to be in.
It depends on the game, but I prefer to just watch those interviews on YouTube later, and then.
Yeah, that's the good thing about it is you can get the highlights with awful announcing.
Yeah.
Or someone you follow on Twitter will give you the funniest things that happen over the course of the night.
This is like one of those categories that we could spend time on, like something that I was in on and I was sure I would always be in on, then all of a sudden I'm out.
See, I still like it because it's the only, but I wouldn't like it with anything else. It's very weird. It goes against what I normally would like to watch,
I don't
which
want
is
guests.
the game with the game
I
broadcast.
enjoy it when it's just them.
But it's fun when it's just them because you almost sink into it. You don't even know that you're a part of the conversation, but you're watching it and it just feels like everyone's in the living room when it's just
the
them
two
talking.
of them talking football, taking some shots at each other
It's
and
great.
pointing stuff out to you, but then the guests bog it down.
So the last 2 weeks now, based on this injury report, it appears as though Brady was at practice today. He didn't practice because he's on the injury report.
Well, this divorce is going to change everything.
But, he wouldn't be on the injury report today. If he's allowed off, they wouldn't add him today, would they?
Well, if he's not there, I think they have to acknowledge it in the injury report in some way, shape, or form. Say, not injury related.
Well, this is injury related, is what they're saying. He's got a right shoulder issue and a right finger injury.
Which he said on Jim Gray, the shoulder.
So he did not practice for the Bucs. Tomorrow, plenty of discussion for college football. We'll dive in with the NFL as well. Trey Wallace and Armando Salguero will join us. Plus, Michael McHenry previews Major League Baseball in the postseason. That's all on OutKick 360 starting at 2 Central.
Good job, everybody. Don't block the box. Please lock your locks. See ya!